hear us. Hello, everyone, and good evening. We've got two people that I think might be having tech issues, but they might pop in later on. But let's go ahead and get started on this great panel about Kevin Can Go F Himself. Let me know, chat, if you can see us okay, or if you need to change anything in terms of the settings of people's volumes. We've got Maiden Monster, we've got Arena, and we've got Sociologic, and we are going to be discussing one of, I think, one of the most interesting shows that I've seen in a long time. So I'm excited to get through this with you guys. First and foremost, did we love the show?
I loved it enough to recommend it and watch it again. So
yes. You are the reason we watched it, aren't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was creative. I liked the two, how it was like both a comedy and a drama. I've never seen that before. I thought that was like so creative.
The way they split it up was perfect. And if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend giving it a shot.
Yeah, and we are going to go over spoilers and details about the show, season 1 and 2. So if you haven't finished it on your own, this is your warning now. Season 1 and 2, I can't actually remember what happened in one or the other, but how do we want to start this off? We could go so many directions. How do we feel?
Well, I thought it was just one continuous story. Splitting it up into seasons, it's just you can do plot points.
Yeah, I think so.
It'd be a lot.
I think so.
Be a lot better. Who was your guys' what character did you guys relate to the most?
Oh, relate to?
Probably Patty, honestly.
For me, it was Allison.
Oh, interesting.
I related to Allison so much, which is why I hated her the entire show.
I'm trying to think of who.
I feel like Arena, you would identify maybe with Sam a little bit because he's so organized and business focused. Maybe I don't know.
I was like, Sam popped into my head, but like not all the way because he kind of.
Yeah, none of them all the way for sure. Yeah.
Jen with 2 N's, Sam's wife. I don't know.
Oh my God, stop. That's so great. Yeah, it's hard to say. I think a little bit of Patty's cynicism, Allison's frustration with feeling trapped, maybe even Kevin's humor because I'm such a boy. Maybe even a little bit of like, I don't know, just like everybody's
love for marijuana.
You know.
Yeah, Neil was actually one of my favorite characters.
He was my favorite character, straight up. Like, I love him. He's so useless. But
definitely very interesting. Actually, I think that was one of the most standout parts of the whole show is giving Neil a different version of himself, so distinct and so not like Kevin. You know how Kevin was at the very end? Neil had he had a stretch of a moment, and it was sad, bro. I was feeling for him, even though I didn't like anybody. I was feeling for him.
Yeah, totally.
When you say you didn't like anybody, I liked Patty. I thought Patty was the more innocent one in all of the situation that happened.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Lonely. Yeah. So she didn't. Her thing was that she was the drug dealer, and she was kind of just wrapped in through association in this whole thing, right? So she was dealing out pills. That was her thing, but she never did anything to Allison. She never did anything to Kevin. She never did anything to Neil. She kind of just seemed like the only pure character that was kind of actually wrapped up in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she had good intentions about giving people drugs. It just kind of went badly. I think the lying and the deception is so hard, but it's also such a, I'm going to say it this way, but kind of a privileged position. I think for once we're diving into a bubble that might be so far dysfunctional from our own. Because I didn't for all the dysfunction I grew up around, this felt very hard for me to watch and identify with because the dysfunction levels were very intense for me. And so maybe if I put my personal history aside and I jump into their world and try to imagine being raised this way and having these friendships and being stuck in this neighborhood and having this limited belief about self, then in that perspective, Patty is sort of the best of them, but also funny that Sam left and came back too. What brought him back to this bubble? Why leave and come back to this place? And I did read up that people from this place really did feel like the show represented their area authentically. And so this is someone's life.
So I moved to Massachusetts recently. We drove when I moved here, the fact that the show was in Worcester was oh shit, look how relatable it is. We drove through, and honestly, I've been to Worcester. It is kind of 1-to-1. New England trash is kind of one of the cities of them, which is it's bad to say, right? You don't want to talk about a city, but there are low income neighborhoods all over, and the types of people that are within them, they portrayed this pretty correctly. I thought the accents were so good. The accents were really good. It didn't
Yes.
seem like they were too try hard. It seemed like they kind of like
Mhm.
rolled in. I like that the characters really like the actors really got into the characters. It seemed like.
Yes, I think Alison Murphy, she's actually Canadian, which I low-key think the Canadian accent can flow into
Helps.
that New England accent. But I will say I do agree with your assessment of Patty. What I found weird was the relationship between Tammy and Patty because the whole time I'm like, is Tammy trying to entrap her? Is Tammy trying
Mm.
to entrap Patty? But then it turned out no, which was very interesting to me as well. Like how the cop characters arc went, particularly when she found Allison after the whole Gertrude Franch
Mm-hmm.
debacle.
What makes you wonder, like, are they so used to seeing stuff that they learn to kind of look past it in some ways?
I
Or
mean,
makes
she
you
herself has planted evidence for her
right,
partner
Mm.
right.
and she also, I think, like in one of the I don't remember if it was season 1 or 2, but in one of the episodes when Nick first breaks into Kevin and Allison's house, um, she makes an assessment of Allison that Allison is like a victim, which is interesting because, um, there's a couple of different ways to look at her, but I think that's the assessment that kept her from, taking persecuting Allison any further because she recognized the abuse that Kevin was putting her through.
How did you feel about just starting off Allison's character from the start? Did we think she was relatable, pathetic, inspiring? What did we think about her as a person?
Just pathetic in my opinion, but also still sympathetic a little bit because you could see just how horrible Kevin was to her. But yeah, I really disliked her from the very beginning. I was just like, God, woman, like make better choices, stand up for yourself, like get out of there,
That's what it was for me. I I empathize a lot with Allison because I've had the same like issues where it's like I put myself in situations and then I like play the victim of it. It's like, oh my God, how did and I'm blaming I used to like blame everyone. So like watching the show I was like kind of irritated with her. I'm like, you're doing this to yourself, right? And it's like she's playing instantly from the very beginning, she's playing like a distraught wife. And for me, it was like episode 1, you wanted to kill him. So like, how are you the victim? But your plan is not to leave. Your plan is not to like discuss. Your plan is to kill the person that you victimized yourself so much that you feel like this is the only escape you have.
I love
And so
that.
like, yeah.
The scene in the
I empathize
library
with
where
her
the
a lot,
woman's
yeah.
like, why are you going to kill him? You know, when she's fake writing the book and the woman's like,
Yeah.
why don't you just leave? And Allison's like, you don't get it. I just can't.
You can't just leave.
Yeah.
Like,
you can't just leave. But at the same time, I don't know, passive aggression, just like,
Oof.
ooh, it drives me crazy. I hate it. Like I would rather just say what you need to say and come out with it. And the way she was so passive aggressive and almost delighted in it, was just like so off-putting to me. Like even though yes, Kevin was clearly from the get-go, he was like horrible and abusive, and yeah, it's still just like, it really irked me.
Well,
when we say abusive, when we say abusive with Kevin, I just like want to focus. I don't think there was physical abuse. I do think it was a lot of like verbal.
Weaponizing
I think
competence. Yeah.
weaponizing
emotional,
competence, that type of
verbal
stuff. Yeah.
abuse. Yeah.
So I just want to like clear that up because I'd seen like a couple people do like reactions to the show and like clearly he beats her. It's like I don't feel any indications of any of that.
No, I actually think it's kind of worse. Yeah, I almost like to some extent, like the benefit of, if this is going to sound really bad, but like physical abuse has scars, so you can see the pain and people believe you. It's worse when people can't believe you because they can't see the scars. You don't see the wounds. So then you ask yourself, maybe I made it up. Like maybe it's something in my head. So in some ways, emotional abuse can be so like, I don't want to say worse because I don't want to compare people's suffering, but like it's got layers to it. Like the writer of the show, Valerie Armstrong, I watched an interview with her and she said that when she was like writing the show, the very first episode, the original pilot episode, she got pregnant, Allison. Yeah. And that's what woke her up from her marriage. But then they decided to scrap that because it gave Allison more options to explore herself as a person, not being pregnant. Yeah. And I thought, oh, that was a good decision. But man, it's interesting, this idea that like a kid will wake us up, but like we know this isn't true for a lot of people. But the idea that like she didn't need a kid, she needed to face herself, I thought was a really kind of, for me as a person who talks about introspection a lot and the relationship to self, I was like, yes, Allison, this is about you. Like your life is a reflection of you. What is up with Allison? And so as we dive deeper into her story and her mother and her father and getting to know her upbringing, it starts to make sense. Like, because, you kind of, I think I learned this lesson for myself, and this is so personal, but I learned that I was the kind of person who would be around these people. And then I had to be the kind of person that wouldn't be around these people anymore. And Allison, I think at first looks like a person who's out of place. And then you realize like, oh no, girl, you belong there, And that's, I think, what was so powerful about the show.
I think
for me, it was the scene where, this is like in the second season where they, where Kevin was gonna frame Tammy for the fires or whatever it may be, like how he's gonna do it. He leaves the living room and you see like 10 to 15 seconds of Allison just staying in the sitcom world. And I think she's looking at the paper, and then I think that was her decision of like, do I just ride with this? Like, because she was learning how to like control Kevin at that point. Do I ride with this or do I go back to what? So I think like in season 2 is when she is actually making like starting to become her own person. Whereas I think in season 1 in the beginning it was just like she was just like a one person character, right? Where it's like she only had this death thing, but by the second season she's trying to learn like she wants to come back, she doesn't want to kill it, whatever it may be. So I thought that was like an interesting scene that she's debated staying in his world.
Yeah, I like that. Arena, I see you're trying to talk. Go ahead, girl.
Yes, I was going to say, so it's interesting because I think the thing that woke her up instead of the pregnancy was the money being gone. Because I believe that was the catalyst for her to like want to kill him, which is an interesting, I guess, solution versus leaving, I suppose, because if the money that she's been saving for 10 plus years or whatever is gone, Kevin spent it, divorce might be financially a more expensive option than an overdose from which she potentially might be able to collect life insurance through his work and stuff. So I wonder if also partially for her in any way it was a financial decision, or if she didn't even have the capacity to think of it as a financial decision and just thought that that was the only way out.
Go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's basically it. Because they didn't touch on the finance aspect. Like they didn't beat you over the head with it, but you could see like the disarray of the house, the duct taped coffee table that I don't think was replaced throughout the whole show.
From Pottery Barn?
Kevin kept ordering shit. Kevin kept buying shit. When he bought that Belichick hoodie, right? When the one that she took.
Yes.
So it was, they had X amount of money saved. She gave Kevin the money to take care of. And then when she was having that conversation with Patty on the porch, when she like realized the money's gone, she's like, no, I'm not good with money. So I gave it to Kevin. She's like, did you think Kevin was good with money? How many packages are coming to the door? So it's kind of like that. Yeah. That scene was kind of like troubling for me.
Like she's choosing to stay in her delusion.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like if you're watching the show, even from the very beginning, you can see like the first time Kevin speaks, this person isn't good with money. And Allison's supposed to be someone who like she wants a better life for herself. She wants to get out of Worcester from the get. So for me, it was just like what led you to trust this person, other than your own like your delusion.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance is a thing. I mean, we really do trick ourselves into thinking we understand. It's funny that she was so passive aggressive, and I wonder if her passive aggressive relationship with Kevin, the murder felt like the most honest thing to do in a sense. Like it was just so in your face, and even though it was ridiculous and totally unethical and all the things, it was one of those things where I wonder if it was like almost a rebellious, like this is the only option because it's like I need it to be big. I need it to be a big deal. I think for me, my married partner is the first person I've ever shared money with. And otherwise, I've always had separate money from my partner. So I found that to be like a very deep betrayal personally. Like I was mortified just as somebody who works so hard and like it's such a big deal to even have anything in savings. And for someone to go and spend it feels like financial infidelity is such a horrible betrayal. It's so bad. So like, it's funny that he didn't physically cheat on her from my memory, right? With a woman, right? I don't remember that. But the financial cheating was like, oh,
That's worse.
It's worse. I was like, I'm offended. I'm offended even worse. Cause like it's so malicious in a sense. Like it's so much like, you know, again, not to compare people's suffering, but I was like, I was so deeply offended. And the fact that he let her believe they were going to get a house or believe they were going to move on or believe they were going to upgrade their life. Oh my gosh. I was so angry. I was angry for her, but then I was kind of angry at her. Because then I was like, do you not sit down and have your monthly like couple budget? Do you not like sit down and have a weekly budget? Do you not sit down and have any kind of touching base? Do you not look at the accounts? And not that we don't trust our partners, but it's necessary to all be on the same page, you know, instead of like, you know, it was like this. It was like she covered her eyes and just thought, you know, I hope it works.
Blind trust.
Yeah.
Which like trust your partner is like, that's fine. But like, no, that's why I think a lot of people like, I think a lot of people watch the show, and I think a lot of people would empathize with the fact, like, hey, if I've been saving money with this person for 10 years, supposedly, and we want a better life, and then just to find out one day that it's all gone, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of rock with her wanting to do that. Like, you can't sue him. You can't sue that because the money's gone, right? You can't sue it out of him. He doesn't have like a high-paying job. He's a cable worker. Yeah. So it's like, I think for her, it was less that it's like expensive to divorce and sue, but there's no actual benefit and it's all just cost to her. Because if she divorces him, it's not like she's getting the house. The house is probably not in her name, right? It's not in both of their names. It's going to be in his name. She works at the liquor store, so it's not like she has like a good enough income to like realistically go. And I think for her, it's in her mind, she felt like her back was up against the wall. He trapped me. He put me here. He spent all my money.
Sure.
I don't have anything else to do. This person needs to die, and the world's better off without him.
Sure.
I wonder, what do you guys think about her decision not to go with Sam when he offered? He was like, "Okay, I'm leaving my wife. Let's go. Like, we have something here." What do you guys think about that?
I was proud of her. Proud of her.
Interesting.
That was the one time that she didn't take the easy way out. Every other time she was kind of taking the easy way out.
Doing the work for her. Yeah.
I think that's when she was starting to realize, like, I am playing victim. I do need to take care of my shit. And so I was a little bit proud of her for that. I didn't think Sam would be good for her anyway. He would have placated her.
Yeah,
Sam was a cope. Sam was a cope.
Yeah, he would.
I was so
He
mad
would have just
about
placated her. She wouldn't grow with him. She would stay exactly where she was, which is married to some guy and living in some city.
Yeah.
And kind of just doing whatever he does.
Well, even Sam was kind of pathetic, like in everything that he was too. Like his in-laws and the whole relationship with the cafe and like everything with that felt very like pathetic to me. But again, I think it's a group of people that are like, this is their whole world. Like their whole world just exists in this neighborhood. Versus like a lot of us in the world, like our world is global. Our world is like at least national. Like our world is not just but these people, this is a group of humans where their whole universe exists in one little place. For
no
real.
social media. No, they have no social media.
Literally, I was like, where is your anything? But no.
Where's your network?
Where's your network? Kind of crazy, but someone's got to be that part of the population, right? Someone has to have this life story. So then I can imagine how trapped you must feel. And then also for Kevin and Neil, they're also trapped in the infantilization of their own life. Like they're trapped in a cycle of being big kids. Everybody's trapped. Everyone's trapped in less than mediocre. Like this whole town is almost like cursed in a sense in the show of being just, this is it. This is your whole life. And I'm like, well, you know,
they made it so that like, why would Kevin ever want to like change, grow? He's the king of his town, realistically.
Right.
Like, anytime he gets brought up, like
Worcester
Allison
Wild
gets,
dude.
yeah, the Worcester Wild dude. He was running for mayor at a certain point.
Crazy.
When Allison went to the skate rink with Neil, when she went back, and she's like, yeah, the Zamboni driver knows Kevin. I got some pull as Miss Roberts. So it's like Miss McRoberts. So it's like he has it on the wall, right? Kevin 600, life 3, and he's part of the winning circle. Like the world revolves around that guy. So like, I feel like he is trapped, but I feel like Kevin's happy where he's at. I don't know if he's trapped or if he's like he thinks he's king of the castle, so he doesn't want to leave. But I guess that's a trap too. Is it kind of like what you're saying?
Yeah, like I feel like he is limited in a sense that look at the way it ended. What joyful
Yeah, he's
person
gonna
ends
Yeah.
it that way?
how many
Yeah.
people can tolerate his ass. And
Right.
as soon as people were like, oh, actually, there's no reciprocity in this relationship.
I mean, even his own
And-
dad. Even his own
Mhm.
dad was like,
That was
I'm done with you, bro.
Yeah, kind of
everyone
sick of the
started
wife
realizing-
jokes.
Yeah, everyone started realizing how gross he was. In the
Yeah.
second season.
Kevin is exactly that person in your life where you're like, he's lovable, he's got problems, but I make room for him. I make space until finally it's like death by 1,000 cuts, death by 1,000 Kevins. And it's like, okay.
When they had Neil in the basement and Neil was like, is that why you want to kill him? Because he doesn't listen to your whining. And then she said, he may not listen to me when I whine, but he laughs when you bleed.
Oh,
And I think that's what clicked for Kevin, that he's just like, he is a putz. He's the sidekick. And I think that was his like,
For Neil.
that was her like, yeah,
For
Neil.
yeah.
for Neil.
Yeah, Neil's the sidekick.
Yeah, Neil's
is
a psychic. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the lol cow. He's the joke of the group.
Exactly.
But something that I like, she said that, but he convinced Kevin to pay for everything, right? The whole idea is that Neil wasn't dumb. Neil wasn't actually dumb. He was just incompetent and didn't want to work, right? So I mean, was he letting himself bleed so Kevin could laugh and pay for everything, or out of what's
Okay.
that situation?
So this is where my personal special interest comes in, where I see a group of people where I think everyone's dumb and everyone's smart.
Yeah.
And I think all of these people were smart enough to figure out how to survive in this bubble, but not introspective enough to pop it. Like they were smart enough to make their world work for them, but not enough to be like actually joyful, just enough to survive. They were all in survival mode. I don't think there was one character I saw that I really thought was like living. Even the cop, I was like, girl, you stressing me out, girl. Like, she's stressing me out.
She was such a monotone character, man.
Oh.
It
She
was
so
weird
flat.
to me that she was dating someone who was for a period of time the subject of her investigation. That
So
to me felt
inappropriate.
That
unethical.
was weird to me, and that she didn't suss that out. Yeah. Mhm.
But then
Well, I
it's a
think
small
that's-
town
that
vibe,
speaks to her
though.
character. Yeah,
Isn't
that's
that
it's a small town vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like her character will overlook something if they feel like they have some type of attachment to a person. So like she didn't even like her partner, right?
Yeah,
Like she didn't
right.
like her partner. She still
Right.
covered for him.
She still covered
So,
for
like,
him, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I
Like the
think
trauma
I
was
think
clear
also-
in this show.
and I think also like the small town vibe thing is that like she was a lesbian, and so like Patty dating her threw me off completely because there was like negative indications. But also I liked how in the show they didn't they never focused on any of the sex. Everyone kind of felt
Right.
asexual,
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
right?
Yeah,
So it was like
definitely.
for me there was no passion in that relationship. It was very much a hey, I like you, you like me, we live here.
Yeah.
We might as
Yeah.
well date. type
Literally.
situation.
No, none of
Mhm.
the good things of life were to be found in this film at all, in this show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what it was. It felt like that. Like if I went there, I would go from a colorful bubble to like boop grayscale. Like it feels like this place is just like, where's the wholesomeness? Where's the joy? Like we're
all in
laughing
Kevin's
children.
head.
Like,
It's all in Kevin's head.
yeah,
That's
oh,
where the laughter, the
That's
joy, the
good.
color.
That's
If
good.
you
My
look at, if
favorite-
you look at life through Kevin's eyes, Worcester's
Yeah.
the greatest place on earth.
oh yeah. Okay, I get it.
My favorite couple in the show is definitely Diane and Neil.
Mhm.
They
Oh,
the most passion and chemistry, and the way that Neil's like PTSD was portrayed. Like, granted,
Mhm.
the
I
scene,
love
like,
that.
loved
So
it.
good.
the scene where he attacks Allison is so complex to me because on one hand, like Neil is a huge guy. Like they got a big ass actor to like play him. He's the biggest man on the show. And Allison's just like average sized woman. That scene, it was so scary. And at the same time, like he just found out she was trying to like kill someone. So like I could see him justifying it in his brain. And then he gets clobbered in the head like so hard that he needs stitches by his own sister, and that and then he gets kidnapped essentially and tied up and threatened. That is like such, and then the portrayal of like his PTSD and like his downfall in like, I mean, not that he was doing great mentally
Sure.
before,
Yeah.
but him dealing with his trauma was, I think, done so well, and I think that is what made him my favorite character in the show. It also was interesting to me that we didn't really get like Neil attacking Allison wasn't a PTSD moment for her. It almost felt like she was like, okay, like this, this was gonna happen, if that makes sense. Like she was using it as like
Yeah.
a you did, look what you did. Yeah, like that. That was very interesting to me because
Victimizing herself.
right,
She's the
yeah,
victim
but, like
again.
but she
She's
and, like,
comfy. Yeah.
she was trying to take his phone, and he was trying to get his phone back, like, to tell and the
Mhm.
funny thing is Neil discovered through that situation that even when he was telling everybody everything, nobody was taking him serious, so
Because of
that
the
whole
person he made
fight
himself.
didn't even need to be a thing, right? So, Allison victimizing herself through him attacking her when, he was trying to get his phone back, that was an interesting moment for me for sure because
Yeah.
it's a tough moment because she can't physically defend herself.
Mm.
Like they did need a weapon to like be able to take control of that situation.
And that was also when Patty, like, first decided to, like, take things into her own hands and stop coddling
Yeah,
the men in
Her
her
brother.
during the men
yeah,
in her life. Yeah.
What did you guys think about that from like a sibling perspective, maybe? Like, what did you think about the fact that Patty seems so easily able to just choose Allison over Neil?
I think that was a buildup.
Mm.
I think so, like in the beginning of the show, the first season, you're seeing Patty as the third sidekick to the Kevin like
True.
group, right? And even in like the sitcom world, they don't talk. Her and Allison don't talk. So I think for her, by the time that she hits Neil over the head, she actually feels like, oh, I have a friendship with this person who is Allison versus just being around the others. And I
Mm.
think that was like her moment of realization, like, oh, these people don't care. Like Neil doesn't care about her. Kevin doesn't care about her. Like they don't care about her. Allison does. Allison weirdly cares about her.
Sure. I feel like they care in the only way that they can care about people. Like it's limited, but it's there. Like it's not, again, I don't think anyone in this show is healthy. So I think expecting anything to be healthy from this show doesn't make any sense. But for where they're at and the level of dysfunction it's at, there is a sense of closeness that I think was cool to see explored. I got so much anxiety when they drove out of town when they shouldn't have been too far from town and they were going to go get the stuff and then they got the gun and my brain I was screaming at the television the whole time like, please don't do this. Whatever this is, stop. Like when they had the two kids in the car getting fast food and I was like, all of this is messy. All of this is messy.
Yeah.
Or even the fact that she hit the truck driver over the head and I was like,
Yes,
what are you doing?
Patty
Yeah.
assaulted a man.
I was
defend
shook.
Allison, but that first time, Allison didn't even need defending because she was just going to buy the pills. Like that was going to be.
Well, Allison told this crazy story about being followed or whatever and like how people wanted to hurt her. And I'm just sitting here like, bro, at what point is it too much? At what
Patty's
point?
the protector, and Patty's a protector, right? Like Neil's her older brother.
And she's taking care of him.
So it's like, Patty plays, or the way like she was giving the pills to her clients, but it wasn't because like she was selling pills. It was like, well, no, she has knee problems, so I gave her pills. Right. So it's like Patty plays protector in all of this. And I think she finds like, she's like, oh, I can protect Allison. It's like a trauma bond, right?
Yeah.
Allison needs protecting. She's the protector. It's the perfect mashup.
Yeah.
But also, I think that there was something about the fact that Allison was finally like taking her life into her own hands that was maybe like an example to Patty. Like she put some kind of hope for her own life in what Allison was doing.
Sure.
Maybe that's why she chose Allison over her brother, because it's like I could either stay here and keep like coddling my brother and choose my brother again and again and again and take care of his everything for him, or I can put all my eggs into the Allison basket where there's actually hope that maybe I can get out and maybe I can make something in my life and make changes as well.
Definitely.
If Allison can change, she can too, which is why she had that conversation with Sam at like the restaurant. She's like,
if Allison
he's
can decenter men, maybe I can too. Yeah.
When Sam told Patty, he's like, people don't change, and then she's like, no, but she actually did though. She actually did, and I don't think they mean she did by like as in she became a different person. She followed through with her plan, and that's why Patty knew that she didn't want to Patty knew she wanted to be found, because Allison's not the type of person to follow through with it. She's not selfless, right? That's like the whole idea. Like Allison's kind of a selfish person, but she did the selfless thing to protect everyone else around her, which is like, damn, she actually changed. She actually became someone who like does things for people, not just for herself.
Yeah. There was a kind of a visual representation to Patty getting her life together with the apartment, right? Like cleaning
Mhm.
out the apartment, organizing the apartment. Like that's so,
Finishing something. Yeah.
exactly. It's so meaningful. And I think that's a universal experience no matter where you come from. I think like, you know, karma isn't you do good, you get good. It's a reflection of your life back to you. So like if you look at your life and you're like, my life is miserable, that's your karma. That's like what you've put into your life to an extent, you know? And this is about like self-responsibility. This is about owning your participation in your life. It's not about excusing all the bad that's happened to you or the trauma that's been inflicted upon you. And I think in this show, all of these people were born into horrible situations, but ultimately, like at some point in your life, whether it's 30 years old or 40 years old, you got to wake up and be like, okay, now this is my responsibility. And I think all of these people, because they're all about 40, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, at what point is it my life, you know?
I think they're like in their early to mid 30s because I remember them mentioning
What?
it and I was like, what? Yeah, I know. They mentioned it. Somebody turned 34. I think it was Patty's birthday and she turned 34.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Mhm.
my bad. They feel older than me. Okay.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
Well,
So I was
Neil's
like,
3 years older, so he's 37 at least.
he's
Yeah, they felt
pushing
like my
Then-
peers, and I'm 39, so yeah. Mm. Definitely not emotionally, hopefully.
What do we think of Kevin's dad? He's an interesting character because on one hand he's kind of mooching in the
He's an
beginning.
enabler.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think for Neil and
then-
his dad, they see Kevin as like a cash cow. They see him as like he funds he puts the fun up, right? We can terrorize his house, we can terrorize his wife, we can do whatever. It's a clubhouse. It's a boys club. You can go do whatever you want there.
Mm.
I
And I
thought
thought it was interesting he was an ex-priest who got a nun pregnant. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, yep, that tracks.
makes a lot of
That
sense,
was
actually.
Kevin's mom, and that was Kevin's mom.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think like men like Kevin's dad. What's his name? I forget. I had it written down and then I
Pete.
Pete.
Yeah.
People like Pete who have kids like Kevin and then enable them at the benefit of themselves. But the moment Pete realized like Kevin was who he was, like he realized he needed to pull away from him. I think I missed it if it was there, but I would have liked a moment of like accountability in a sense because you raised him.
Never gave him any of that. Never
Like
took any of the
like you raised that man and you made him and you enabled him and you allowed him to make fun of his wife. You allowed him to belittle people. Like you didn't care when he belittled Allison, but he belittles your new wife or your new girlfriend. And now it's like a big deal. And like, that's the moment where I'm like, okay, it's interesting what it takes like for people to kind of be self-aware of, or at least like introspective about like how much of a role they had to play in it.
So I think Patty touches on that when her and Allison were talking about like why would you just like you kind of just sat there and watched him like laugh when Kevin ruined her paralegal job, right? He got her fired with the he put sugar in the guy's gas tank, so on and so forth. And she asked Patty, she's like, why did you guys just like sit there? And Patty says it, she's like, it kind of seemed harmless at the time. So if you're in the friend group, if you're in the bully friend group and you're like doing these small microaggressions to people, right? You probably do see it as harmless because nothing's happening to you. But for
In
Pete,
the
right?
world, yeah.
Yeah, for Pete,
It's a
right?
joke.
It's a joke. It's not a big deal. It's harmless, blah, blah. So for Pete, everything was a joke because nothing was at his expense. The moment it became at his expense, stopped being harmless. Now you start realizing, oh, you're a piece of shit. To me, we were supposed to be piece of shits to everyone else.
Exactly.
Yep, that's
I
how
think it was
Kevin learned it. That's where he learned it.
Interesting how I think Kevin and Allison are both only children. So the only siblings we see are Neil and Patty. Right? Because I don't think any
no,
siblings are mentioned. I
I
mean,
think-
considering the way Kevin was born by a priest
Mhm.
and a nun, I don't assume that they had any
And
further.
Kevin definitely has only child syndrome for sure.
Right?
Oh,
But
definitely. Yeah.
and Allison, I think, in a way as well, like she was like daddy's girl, but it doesn't seem like her father was the healthiest influence, and then her mother was straight up a copy of Kevin, I guess. So
I
she
was gonna
had
say
like,
she married her mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely. Mhm.
Wait,
and
that's
she
really
had, like,
funny. She married her mother. Oh no.
'cause the only other time we see sitcom world without Kevin in it is with Allison's mom at her dad's funeral. And I
Yeah.
also wonder, I don't know if the show talked about it, but I don't know if Allison's parents were divorced or not. It seemed
On
to imply that because the mom didn't really seem that upset about, like, she was just there
I think
at that
that's her
moment.
character. Her character is that like
But
she married some guy in her town, and then he just kind of like never
But
lived up to
Allison
her.
set up the funeral. I think if
Mhm.
she was still married to him, that responsibility would, like, taking care of, like, his
I thought she just didn't
final
love him.
Yeah, I
testament.
think she just didn't
May
care for him. Yeah.
maybe. I don't
Hey,
know. It seems
Google.
like they might have been divorced or, like, more distant than just, like, in an unhappy marriage, if that makes sense. Um, but I do think the only child thing is
Thing plays
interesting
out.
because if Allison had a sibling that witnessed her marriage, I wonder how that would have gone. If
Mhm.
Kevin had a sibling that witnessed his marriage, how that would have gone. Um, yeah, that's just a
Yeah.
little
So
tidbit.
for me, when I'm watching these kind of shows, a lot of the times, like, I won't make inferences that they don't like directly give me, because then I'm like adding way. I feel like I'd be adding way too much. The like what I got from the funeral scene was that the mom and the dad were just married because that's what you do. You grow up, you meet someone, you get married, you live a life. She didn't. And then Allison's mom was she felt small town. She's like, we're not ham people. You got a fan. It's like, how is a ham fancy? Right? I didn't realize it. But that's like, so her character was kind of like belittling her and belittling herself. Like she kind of probably felt small. And so I don't think she loved her husband, or she felt like her husband wasn't like, in the same way that Allison wants Kevin to change and become this person who wants to live in the suburbs and, have a nice dinner and so on and so forth. I think Allison's mom was that person as well, but her dad was like the big dreamer who never really followed through on anything. So that's like why her mom is kind of like apathetic at the funeral.
Yeah, I'm not finding that they were divorced online, but this is from Reddit forums. I'm finding that the abuse was supposed to be from Allison's mom to the husband, the dad, and to Allison, and that Allison repeated the pattern by marrying Kevin. So it's supposed to be this, the original writer, Valerie, said that it's supposed to be like a sign of like narcissistic abuse. That Kevin is like exhibiting narcissistic abuse and that the mother is a part of that pattern of behavior. Right. So the irony is like when they tell the story about how Allison even met Kevin in the first place, it's about that idea of like he looks so different and so different from what she's used to. But the irony is he's exactly what she's used to,
Yeah.
Well, when she met him, so for Kevin, do we feel that he is is he intentionally abusive, or is he just kind of like living his life the way he wants to? Is he just main character? How do you guys feel about him
I mean,
as like a person?
he did steal someone's medical device. Like, I
Mhm.
don't intentionally stole it.
He kept
So
he's an arsonist. He kept setting fires. He made the whole electricity of the town go out because of his.
He's the
and
worst. He's the
yeah.
worst kind of person, I've decided. The person who looks like they're not doing it on purpose. And so you make excuses for their behavior, but they know exactly what they're doing, but they play dumb. So then you feel stupid for accusing them because like, obviously they didn't know better, but like, obviously they knew better. And then you feel stupid. And it's the whole cycle. That's where the narcissistic abuse comes from for some categories of that cycle of abuse, which is like, how could it have been me? You're the one who did. I didn't do it. It's like they gaslight you. I'm being gaslit the whole time by Kevin.
Narcissism. It's more, I would say, erring on the side of like vulnerable narcissists. Like I just can't do anything. You have to take care of me.
Weaponizing competence to the T.
Yes. How could I do this on purpose? It's all
So
a joke.
do we feel like it's intentional, or do we feel like he's just like living his life and has a lack of care for like?
I think the last scene indicates that it was intentional. And when he plots with Allison on either how to get the mayor out of the running or how to discredit Tammy's career, like he is plotting. So he doesn't always plot with Allison, which is why we don't.
But that's what
always see
Allison
him
even
doing
said.
that.
The way
Yeah.
that you get Kevin to do anything is to make it seem like, to get him on your side for doing or do something where it's like, okay, it's going to benefit him to help you out.
Yeah.
It's not just going to help you out, only if it benefits him somehow.
Well, that last scene where Kevin shows his like quote true self, I think that is that's like the unmasking of what we're actually facing, because I can't I have like 1,000 stories of people like Kevin that like in spectrum-y ways have come into my life. And every time you want to like love them, you want to say like, oh, I'll get you therapy, I'll help you. You just need the right like love or care. And then once they reveal that side of themselves to you, you're like, oh my gosh, like I was deeply mistaken. But I think it's hard to fathom that they could be planning as deeply as they appear, because they just appear like almost like a golden retriever. It's very confusing. And then you realize, wait a second. Now, I was deeply confused about the ending, though. Like, why did he go out the way he did? What was that about?
It was accidental.
I think it was an accident.
Was it an accident? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he got drunk and passed out.
And he has
Oh,
fire. Yeah.
you know, when I watched it, I was really confused because I was like, did he commit suicide? Like, was that his goal? It was complete. So he's so inept, he can't even. Okay. Oh, God.
So that's what it is for me, is the ending scene, the last scene where he breaks into like the dramatic world. He's saying, he's like, you're not going to leave, because if you leave, you're going to end up coming back. You can't do this on your own, so on and so forth. So it's like the weapon, the narcissism and the manipulation came in for me there. But as I was watching the show, because it's a sitcom, it feels like he keeps getting into these huge issues. So like the neighbor, right? He doesn't like the foreign neighbor because he thinks the neighbor stole the hoodie. So he becomes racist. He starts plopping soccer balls and so on and so forth because they're like foreigners or whatever. I do think he is an idiot. And I think it's like, he's an only child. His dad clearly never gave him like any type of punishment, or like he didn't raise him, right? He kind of just like let him be who he is. So I feel like Kevin's a victim of his own idiocy. But then deep down, he has to know that like he's in control of everything, but just everything's come to his benefit. He's won so many times. I don't think he thinks he can lose. And I think he thinks the world is actually operating for him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How
So-
self-centered and egotistical he is.
So he's hyper egotistical. I don't think he sees the narcissism that he has. Like when he was telling Neil, talking to Neil about loyalty, right? When he ran away from the cops and Neil ended up taken. He looks at cops. He goes, "You abandoned me by running too slow and getting caught by the cops." And Neil goes, "I'm the one who went to jail here." And like, I'm the one who went to jail here. And then Kevin goes, "Yeah, I'm talking about your loyalty to me." And then
Yeah.
just completely blows past that. And I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit. Like, how do you get into like that? I've never understood people who can be just like mean to someone and then just like go on with their day. I don't know what that is, because I
think-
have a guilt that kills me
Yeah.
about that kind of shit.
Keeps me
I
alive.
wonder, like, if there's like a difference, I think, between intention and competency. And
Mhm.
so just because he's not competent doesn't mean he's not intentional, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Well, but like so the way Allison met him, it was like she was in a low place. Her dad had just died, and then she looked over at the bar and kind of like called over to him and went and hung out with him. You stayed for 10 years. So like my question would be like, for this, is he attacking her, or is she just like went into his life? It's not, nothing's changing, and it's like now she's just annoyed and disturbed with it, which is why I think initially like the whole Team Kevin thing came up in the chat, which is because you watch the whole story, you go, damn, this guy's a piece of shit. Why is she still with him? Then you get the intro of like how they met, and it's like, oh, she chose that because she wanted some fun. She wanted that sitcom world.
But she didn't want abuse. It was like death by 1,000 small cuts. Like the ignorant,
Yeah.
the line between Machiavellian, intentional, plotting 4D chess and like kind of ignorant stupidity leading you into doing bad things to people is ultimately the outcome's the same if someone's abused. And like, so we're looking at like it from that perspective. I think like she signed up to escape her life, but ended up back into it in a different, flavor, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we have to pay attention to our life and realize that it didn't just happen to us in a lot of circumstances. Our life is a reflection of our own relationship with self. And I think Allison is deconstructing herself through the series. Like it's supposed to be a series for me of like self-awareness. Like, who am I? What's the role I'm going to play? Am I going to be the wife of Kevin? Am I going to be the white woman who murdered her husband? Am I going to be this? Like, who am I in the story? And I feel like Allison, like, you remember when she runs away and she kills herself and then she like gets a new name and it's not working. She thinks this is what she wants, right? But she's not. It's not what she wants, what she wants is like to know her place in the world, and you can't know your place in the world by pretending to be somebody else.
She wants her life.
Yeah.
She wants her life to go good.
The progression from like her like even centering Kevin and her trying to break free by like her first plot being like I'm gonna kill him, and then moving to like no, I'm gonna kill myself, and then like going from that to like oh no, I'm gonna come back, you know, to my town.
Rebirth.
And yes, yep. It's like the classic hero's journey in a sense where you end up in the same place where you start, but like you have all this other knowledge too.
Yes.
You had to go through each of those steps. We're like, okay, no, it's not about Kevin. I shouldn't center him even in my plot to get free and like killing him. I can't kill myself either. I have to like, rebirth, like born again, be born again.
And confront him and divorce him, which is what people were telling her to do in the first place. So it's funny that she came back to that, and then that's what made Kevin fall apart also. And also, she married him when she was 22.
Because he said, oh, I'm going to ruin you, you know? Yeah.
Right. But she was also 22. So let's keep that. She got married to Kevin. I don't know when her dad died, but I don't know what those scenes were. I think there were some scenes where she was supposed to be 17 or something like that. But she got married to Kevin at 22 years old, which is very, very young. And she didn't go to college. But she wanted to.
She moved in with him 2 months. 2 months into their relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Which we saw Kevin do that with Molly.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
6 months into the relationship, he goes, "All right, babe, when are you gonna move in? Yeah, we'll start moving in."
No, because
he didn't.
Allison warns Molly, and Molly gets the hell out of there.
Yeah, he told her she's moving in. Yeah,
because he can't be alone, right? That was like that. That was the whole point of that scene. Is that he was alone for 5 seconds and started. I'm gonna say cool words until someone shows up, and he started saying words. And Molly came in. He's like, "Oh, you have to move in here. You gotta move in. I can't do this."
Yeah. So, what part about Kevin did we like?
I liked when he put the hot sauce in his eyes. That was really funny.
Yeah, I mean, watching him fumble, around was fun. I couldn't bring my, even in the sitcom world, like when you're watching it, you're kind of like, Jesus, this guy's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
This guy's just an idiot. I guess that.
There is something.
His sense of fun, maybe.
He is like a puppy in a way that like it's always about a good time.
Yeah, puppy pisses on everything, but at least he's
you can like join him in that. Like if you can't beat him, join him.
Yeah.
Like when Allison did for a second when like they made the Worcester Wild dude thing, or like the plot against Tammy and stuff. When she joined him, it seemed like Allison was in some sense having a good time, but that's not who she is.
And so if you center him and he's at the whatever, then you're in this bright, happy sitcom of a life, you know, and like, yeah, that can be fun for a little while. Forget reality, you know, forget responsibility.
Maiden keeps touching on it with the whole centering, like centering men. And I think it's centering like people. I don't think it's men specifically. I think it's centering these people that like, and not centering yourself. I think like that is a big thing with her. And when she loses herself and wants to join in with Kevin, the world is bright. Everything can be okay. And it's like her kind of like contemplating, should I just like fucking join in and just be blind? I could be Patty. Patty was like that for 10 years. She seemed to have a fine life, right? Like, why can't I just have a fine life? But like, to you guys' point, I don't think that's not who she is. That would be her centering him in her life.
Yeah. I will say, I don't like anything about Kevin, but the one scene I did enjoy watching because it felt so a throwback to sitcom. I love sitcoms. I love all of them. I just loved them growing up, and any that I missed, I feel bad about it. I want to go back and catch up because I missed a lot of good ones. But I did enjoy the scene where they have their, I think, his birthday dinner. Right? Is that the one? And he's going back and forth between the guys and her. And I just like
their anniversary.
Their anniversary party.
Oh, yeah.
And I just like that Allison was like, she prepared with like her book and like prepared for Kevin. Like Kevin thinks like everyone's in on it, but Kevin kind of thing. Like, you know, I know Neil's technically not in on it, right? Is that the joke? I can't remember now. It's been a while.
Right. Neil's not in on it. Right. And then Kevin thinks Allison's not in on it.
Right. But Allison, So it's like that idea where that's the kind of person, like it's interesting to see this person not be a 12-year-old or like a 6-year-old. It's like a grown-up, and then this grown-up you gave your life savings to. Do you know what I'm saying? This is the person you trusted with your money.
Yes.
Which is why, like, Allison pissed me off too.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, what are you doing?
That's what I'm saying. So, like,
She
really,
did not want to look at herself either, just as much as Kevin didn't want to.
yeah, like at some point, like, who is Allison to think she's better than anybody in this group? But also, 1-to-1, Kevin is the worst.
He's the worst.
He's the worst. And so I think there's something to that where you can be in a community. And I speak from experience of, like, again, looking around the room and realizing, like, nothing this dysfunctional, of course, but like being the person who's like, oh, I'm with this group of people. I'm still in the group, whether I like Patty. Yeah, I'm there. I shouldn't even be here. Why am I here? Mm-hmm. And it's like, whatever reason I gave myself to be there, I need to give myself a reason to get out. And that was a lesson I had to learn always when you're in any social dynamic with anybody. But like Allison had this, I think it was so interesting how she like trapped herself in this bubble and then continued to trap herself. I think the scene where she's at that restaurant and the guy comes in and he has like a knife and she thinks he's going to kill Kevin at the restaurant, but he's obviously not going to kill Kevin at the restaurant. And she starts panicking and sabotaging his murder. And I'm like, what are you doing? Do you want him dead or not? And it's like, obviously she doesn't. Yeah, so then she's fighting herself the whole time. She's fighting herself. You know, while trying to escape Kevin. And look, Kevin is an abuser. He's exactly what abusers do, right? They keep you in a spiral of like, you have to be with me. Who else could you be with? Who's going to love you the way I love you? You know, who's ever going to tolerate you the way I tolerate you? Who's ever going to make, you know, and it makes sense. Like she would have such low self-esteem that she would rely on even Kevin's validation to feel something, you know, I mean,
so, like, when they excommunicated Patty for like that one episode, right? I think there's a weird feeling of like, so when she's with Allison, she tells her that like the jokes were harmless. Okay, that's because you're part of the winning team,
right?
And so I think like seeing Kevin, he never fucking loses. Life always seems to lose to Kevin. I think you do feel weird. Like you should, like if you're not around that, now you're part of the losing team. Because like when you're hanging out with Kevin, everything is a joke. As long as it's not at your expense, life is great. So I think leaving and like they didn't realize I don't think they realized they were around bad people until like the very end.
It happens.
I think they were just fine. Everything. This is just life.
Yeah.
When Tammy wanted to leave Worcester, and Patty was, she was like, I'm miserable here. I hate my job. And Patty was like, isn't that kind of just like life for everyone? Like, that's just what we do. So I think like leaving, like, I don't think you realize you're in the negative group for most people because you're part of the bully team. And nothing's happening to you. So everything's harmless. Everything's fine. So you don't realize you're around shitty people. You think you're just around people.
Right.
This is what everyone does.
Totally. I think that was really a powerful moment too, like to understand Patty and like her background and her thought process. Cause I wondered like the whole time I was like, what are you doing? Why are you? Because I know those girls who just end up the third person in a boy group or like the girl in the boy group. And it's not like even that she's a pick me. That's the wrong terminology for Patty. Oh, yeah. It's like, I don't know what trope she is, but like I know that person. And I'm always like, what are you doing here? And I think they're lonely. And I think they'd rather be with them than alone.
She's bonded to her brother, right? Her mom died when she was young. She was 11 and puking in the back of the funeral home.
Right.
And then like her mom dies, their dad obviously passed. So she felt like she had to, like she was changing her brother's diapers. He's 3 years older than her. That was a big, like that joke was a big thing to think about. She's attached to her brother. She has a savior complex.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she must feel obligated to not abandon him. Like I'm responsible for you.
So he lives with her. She pays for his rent.
Yeah.
She pays for his rent. She like up until like she kicks him out. She's like, no, he needs me, right? This person, this 40-year-old man clearly needs me to take care of him and make every decision for him. But but then she realized she just enabled him to be that person that like needed her in her life. So she just had a savior complex. And that's why I think she was like stayed around the groups because she never even liked Kevin. Her and Kevin never really had any like connection. It was just her connection to Neil and then through.
Well, maybe a part of a savior complex, but there's another one that's also like, I think a lot of women get trapped in this thing where it's like, you have to take care of people. And I'm sure men do too from the protector perspective. But like there is this like older sister, even though she's not the older sister, but the girls know what to do. Yeah, like I feel like I feel like I got a lot of weird feedback growing up where like women were worse than men in most regards, but the only regard in which women were obligated to be better was to like take care of everybody. But then taking care of everybody meant really just like doing the shit job. The worst job, the worst part of it all. Well, you guys like puked in the bathroom after like a Friday night of drinking, like the women clean it up, and it's just like the cycle of it. And that's what I felt like was happening in this bubble, where like the boys would party, the boys would make a mess, the boys would do crazy things, and the girls were there to clean it up until they stopped. And then the boys were like, what the fuck? It's like, what are you doing? And it's like that idea, but that's like a negative symbiotic relationship right there. Like they feed each other. It's like this loop. And then finally someone says no. And then we have to see the aftermath. It's not like, oh, I make this decision to like confront my abuser or my toxic family. Boom, fixed. It's like, no, it's a long process of deconstructing all of that shit that got us here in the first place.
Well, there's like a weird, I don't know if you guys deal with this. I deal with a weird guilt of holding people accountable. I feel like sometimes if like, I don't know what it is. I hate that look in someone's face when they realize that they're like, that they fucked up, and I get guilty, right? So I think that's like for her, when she was dealing with him, I saw it in her face. And that was a really good actor scene for me. When she was arguing with Neil and telling him to leave, is she was like confronted with this like, oh shit. Like, I gotta tell this person he has to grow the fuck up. But
Totally.
Like, you feel weird because it's a person you love and care for and you've protected for so long that now you feel like you're attacking them by having them confront what their life is. And that's tough. Like,
Totally.
When dealing with, it's very, very difficult.
Oh,
like
yeah.
when she told him he has to leave and he's like, where the fuck am I gonna go? And she's like, don't you think you have to figure that out? I was like, I don't know if I'd have it in me to say that line.
Definitely. Definitely.
That phrase is fucking tough to feel like you're abandoning someone, but you're not actually abandoning them.
Yes.
Right?
No,
Like
you-
they need to
you're
stand on
loving
their
them
own
to
two
a
feet.
deeper level when you force them to actually take care of themselves and step up in their own life. But it's very uncomfortable. You have to confront parts of yourself that are uncomfortable with that or that don't tolerate that. Yeah. That shows where the unhealthiness is in her. Yeah.
Yeah, that scene was very, very tough for me to watch. I was like, oh shit, damn, yeah, fuck. But then also when Kevin's house burned down, he's like kind of walking away with his like duffel bag. I was like, damn, yeah, that does suck for him. But right after she kicks him out of the house, he goes to fucking Diane's house and tells her he loves her and that they have to move in together. It's like, so right away it was like, oh, okay, no, he needed to be held accountable for his actions. That's fine. I got that relief. The removal of guilt. Maybe Patty didn't have the removal of guilt, but me watching, I was like, oh, okay, it does work out when you hold someone accountable. Thank God.
Yeah.
What do we think of Allison cheating on Kevin
Ugh.
as like a result of her situation?
Did not like it.
Know if Kevin ever found out. Yeah, I didn't like those scenes either, and it did make it hard to root for her.
I understood it. I
understood. Yeah, very human.
I didn't agree with it.
Very human.
Not even very human. He they were dating when they were 17, right? And so like her kind of like, I feel 17 again, right? It's like it's that kind of feeling of like, okay, this is when things were okay. This is when things were great, because Allison was pretty decent in high school. When she ran into the news reporter that was doing the Worcester Wildwood thing, she was like, hey, like you were actually great in you were great in high school. Like you were on track, you were doing good in school. Like where was like the disconnect? Right? And so like when I think for her, like the whole sleeping, like I wouldn't have done it, right? Like that obviously it just blew up in her face, but it made complete sense to me. I wasn't surprised. I guess I didn't feel any type of like way about it. I didn't get angry at it at all because I was like, okay, these are all, not that Kevin deserves that. These are all shitty people, but it makes sense that you're trying to find like your past self in this moment.
What about
same for Sam,
Jen, Sam's wife?
Oh, Sam
Like,
was shit. Sam's a shitbag.
He is, which kind of confused me at first because like he came on the show as this character as like, oh, you know, he has these dreams and he's coming back to town and he opened up this, you know, diner, which was his dream to do, and
on his wife's parents' money.
Money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's Brittany's point. Is like, why did he come back here to do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, true. He's just as lost and fucked up as everyone else in this miserable town. Like that was so depressing for me. Like I as much as I understood it and it made sense for the characters, I was just like, it was almost like a punch to the gut when they, you know, had that affair. It was like, really? Like, really? Is there nothing redeemable in this city? Is there no one?
No, and that's kind of like the point of it. It's like, is there anyone, and what does this mean? And like, how does this play a role in how we perceive ourselves? Like, honestly, I'll be real. For a middle class kid from California, it like humbled me a bit because I was like, damn, I grew up privileged. Like I grew up I grew up with access and community and parents and aunties and uncles and just like healthier, functional people. Not the most like we have our problems, but like
Level of dysfunction.
Yeah, like that level was a lot for me to handle. And it reminds me too of like sometimes as a streamer, I have to remember like someone with this situation could be listening to me and being like, what is she talking about? Because I'm not thinking about the Allisons, bro. Like I don't even know how to get an Allison to do step 1. You know, like I don't even
for an Allison in my life or any of these people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's not that they're not lovable or there's not something redeemable, hopefully, for somebody along those lines. Like everybody could, I think everyone has a chance to be a better version of themselves. It's just like everyone's starting point is just so different. And so they may not have had many opportunities to be better. I wondered though, if I look back at the people in that town, was there anybody who was just like a basically good person? And it was hard to remember, but then maybe that was on purpose. Because maybe that was the point of the show. Because you remember the lady that like helped them break into the office and she's like, fuck this town and fuck the government. Yes. I was like, okay, she's funny though. But like, is this like a good person? Because this doesn't feel like a good person either. But then she was kind of funny.
So taking revenge.
Like everyone's a product of their environment type situation.
Right.
Lorraine was fine.
Wait, who's Lorraine?
Fine.
Yeah.
Diane was fine.
Diane was fine-ish. She felt lovely to me, but sad.
Yeah, she was just sad. She didn't love her husband. Her husband didn't necessarily treat her the best. She had like a shit job. But like, yeah, like she was like the only one who didn't do anything to anybody.
And
unless
she wasn't
cheating on her husband, I guess.
Cheating on her husband.
Like she went to cheating on her husband, but so her husband was cheating on her this whole time. I think at that point that was like almost like a consensual.
Yeah, they were just
like they were broken up or like whatever. Yeah.
Talk about
but like at the same time, she didn't want Neil coming around. It was like a
little messy.
Well, she didn't want to leave. She didn't want to leave her husband. She made that clear like a bunch of times. And I think it's the same. I think it's the same reason that like I think Allison wouldn't want to leave if she was normal. They don't have anything to do. She works at her husband's liquor store. Right? Like what would she do? I think he owns it. I'm pretty sure.
Going to the movies, having an affair, it's like your little bit of excitement for your life.
Yeah, so for her, it's like, where's she gonna go? Like, I think we do have the product of your environment situation. There are a lot of people who grow up in these like kind of towns where it's like there isn't job opportunities. You didn't go to school. You do just work a kind of minimum wage job, and you have to kind of like deal with the life that you have, which is what Patty's point was. It was like everyone's kind of just like miserable, right? It's because we're all just living life. And it seems like, that's kind of how small towns go, right? It's either you move to the big city or you stay in your small town.
Yeah,
and if you move to the big city, you lose all of your people.
Yeah.
But you maybe gain a better life. But if you stay in the town, you might not have a better life. But hey, everyone lives a shit life. I at least have my people.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. Actually, when I lived for a small time in the mountains of Arizona, one thing I learned about the people there, because it's a very small town, is something I learned about them is they were like, oh, I would just love to see California. And I was like, it's right there. It's right there. And they're like, I would just love to see the beach. I was like, it's 8 hours away. Like you could just get in the car and drive. And they're like, I can't just get in the car and drive. And I was like, why not? Because I've moved countries. Like I'm that person who's like, my parents immigrated. So I was like, what do I got to do? Like, what do I have to do? I'm from a lineage of people that proved to me, you think it's hard to move states? My parents moved countries. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. But if you don't have that, if you have no idea that you're allowed to leave your small town, I met those people like born and raised in this town and they're just like, I've never seen the ocean. Like to say I've never seen the ocean. And I'm like, it's right there. Like you could just drive. My brain can't comprehend it. But then that's their life. Like that's their whole perception of reality. This is their whole ecosystem. This thing right here.
They put roadblocks up too, right? It's like, well, it's an 8-hour drive. Well, okay, what day am I? What do you have to take off work? Look how much it's going to cost in gas. What are we going to do? We're going to go just to the beach for 3 hours. We're not LA people. We're not California people. I just want to see the beach specific. It becomes a whole loop of like kind of just put roadblocks in front of yourself. And it is the people that have like generations in like one small town where everyone knows each other and so on and so forth. it's kind of difficult to go 8 hours out. Like
Yeah.
your vacations are probably in the next town over, realistically.
Totally. Yeah, maybe driving down to like the city Phoenix 3 hours away, like at most. Like that's a crazy, you know what I mean? And like, and these people are not in the most how do I say, like, what are they making? Like $10 an hour? Like it's like a very different reality of what you know, and that's what it feels like. Yeah, that's what it feels like for Allison working at the liquor store, and she's sitting here like, this is my life. Like this is it. And there's something about that might sound, this is gonna sound so silly, almost like freeing to people. Like all you have to do is live in this small town and work your minimum wage job and you'll somehow make it in a weird way. You don't have to do much.
The work of aspiration. Yeah.
Exactly. But then the irony is like, if you don't aspire for more, this will be your life. But then maybe it's just easier.
As a human, it seems like there seems to be something almost like kind of gross about that to me, though, because
There
I feel
is.
like it is so central to what it is to be a human. You know, to have a goal and to like move towards it and to like have a vision of a higher self. You know,
Stagnation.
Yeah.
Well, how many people actually have those goals, and how many people are actually stagnant? I'd argue most people are probably like stagnant and comfortable where they're
Even
at.
in a big city, there's definitely like people who struggle maybe in different ways from people in small towns, and there's probably people that find a lot of success in those types of small towns. Granted, I don't know. I've always lived in big cities, but it's definitely like on one hand, it's almost like a birds of a feather situation. Like, you know, none of us know an Allison because we're not in the environment to know an Allison.
I've known some Allison. I wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I think that was why this was so depressing to me, because it just reminded me of like a different time in my life when that was very kind of my reality.
How did you get out?
Well, so when I think about that, I think about like my addiction. Like that was like very symbolic of my addiction, was very much like that show. And I got out because I had a kid. So I was one of those people.
Yeah, there we go. But even that's exceptional, because how many people have babies and they don't change? Like you were exceptional in that too, though. Right? Because Allison's mom had her and didn't, you know, and then Kevin's mom had him and she didn't. And like all those people were raised in those bubbles and they didn't. But like you had your baby and you changed your life because of it. Like I think that's kind of exceptional too. Yeah.
Kevin changed for like a nanosecond when he thought that Allison was pregnant.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
For like a minute, he gets up. He's like something happens when you think you're gonna have a kid, and you this protector kind of like is like, oh shit, maybe Kevin did just need a kid to change.
But then, yeah,
it's not a good look.
Like an extension of himself, and
he'd be the guy who used his kid to like get into things for free. Like my kid, he's actually disabled. Oh, he's actually really sick. He's got cancer.
Yeah.
So with people feeling
with a kid makes me
it's horrible.
With people feeling like they're trapped and like getting out doesn't change anything. Doesn't change everything all the time, right? Because there are people who are trapped in there are people who like are trapped in New York, right?
Yeah, definitely.
They just live in New York. They don't want to live in New York.
Definitely.
They're like, where the fuck am I gonna go? Everyone I know here, everything I know is here. I can't go anywhere. This is what I'm used to. This is like the whole thing. So for like when Allison left, when everything worked out, right? They were done. She left. She was off scot-free. Tammy and Patty were like, you know, no one was gonna get in trouble for anything. Nothing changed for her. She still was like, she was like, okay, so I changed the location, I changed the locale, but I'm still me. And so like, I have to go back. I want to go back. She comes back. She goes, I don't think I want to leave. I think I want to stay.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of like that small town, not even small town. It's she has family with Patty. She has friendship. She has connection. She has whatever it may be. She doesn't have that in Maine where she goes out. So that's what, like, I think that is like indicative of like these people and like why people relate to them. Even if you don't do the same actions or acts, you can understand why like someone is kind of stuck in this group, stuck in this circle, stuck in this town. And that like that, I thought that was a great aspect of the show. It showed that really well, that changing locale will not change who you are. Because like Tammy kept wanting to leave, right? She's like, we need to leave. I see everything I see here is just a fucking mistake. And she's like, But it's like if you leave with the same person that lied to you, like the issue is that everywhere I see, everywhere I look, I see a place you've lied to me at. Okay, but
Ugh.
like you're gonna change locale and take the person who lied
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah.
Nothing's
Well,
gonna change.
There's
Oh,
two.
there you are, kind of a thing.
Yeah. There's that saying. You can leave where you have bad memories, but you're taking the you with you. And you are the person who helped facilitate or remain. So like you have to change. That's what I mean when I say like you have to become a different person. Like the person I was in my 20s, God bless her, she's dead to me. Like I love her, but I can't be that Britney anymore because like she doesn't exist. And without her, I couldn't be me. But with like, if I was still her, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I wouldn't have we probably wouldn't even be in contact. Like I couldn't have made this present if I was this. I wouldn't even be able to marry my partner if I was still that Britney.
Mhm.
So much of my healing and recovery made me the person that was able to be compatible with this person, able to be the person who could move to Europe, to be the person who can make YouTube happen full time. You know, all of that stuff happened after therapy and healing, you know?
Well, she had her moment at the end when Kevin's gone. And like I think she did change. She did have that moment where Patty goes, he finally did what you wanted him to do. And she's like, I didn't even want that anymore.
Yeah.
She came back.
Yeah, good point.
That must have been such a crazy moment for her to come back, deal with the divorce, tell her and walk out, and then he kills himself. It's like you did all of this
Yeah.
for however long this fucking show spanned for. And you could have I think it was like, oh, I could have just done this in the beginning.
Yeah. Totally.
But
Totally.
I don't know if I don't think she could actually have though.
She had to grow.
Transformation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The final character, I liked Allison's ending. I hated Allison's. By the end of the show, I was like, okay, I'm good with you now.
Who's the most dynamic character, probably? Yeah.
Allison?
Yeah. Maybe Neil, but I think more Allison more so. Yeah.
I mean, she's the main character, I suppose, right?
Do we think Patty, I mean, other than, so Patty changed allegiances, but did Patty change as a person? Do we think?
I'd like to think Patty changed somewhat as a person. When we say change has been doing it's a lot of work here. I've noticed even in my work, when we say people have changed, it doesn't always mean like 100%. Sometimes it can mean 10% or 15% or a little bit. I think Patty changed in a better direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she was finally packing her house. Like she actually had a box. You know, to me that was very symbolic. Like, oh, she's actually moving. So maybe that's what it was. Like she's actually starting to move and do the work.
What do we think of the conversation Neil had with her where he noticed that Patty was repeating a pattern from high school where she basically was like
falls in line with whatever.
But the ironic thing is Neil is also a sidekick. So as siblings,
Neil's a sidekick by choice. I think was like the implication. He chose to be idiot with Kevin because Kevin kind of like funded all the adventures.
Right.
And then with Patty, she was like a sidekick by like she just wasn't confident in herself. And I think that was the change for Patty, is that she realized that she deserves to care about herself when she looks at Neil and Neil goes, what is it that you want that I've never done for you? And she goes, I just want to go out on the front porch and smoke a cigarette and not care about anyone. And then he goes, well, that's pathetic. And she goes, well, that's all I could come up with right now. And maybe I could come up with more if I didn't have to do this.
Damn.
So I think like through like by the second season, she's gaining at least confidence, like within herself. She's starting to like, she sees herself as a person and not as just an extension of like help for everyone. Because I think initially she didn't see herself as like a person. She just saw herself as like a helper.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be here for people. I take care of this. I take care of that. And then she finally realizes, oh no, she is her own person. She needs to think about shit for herself.
Yeah.
What about Neil in this regard? I can't remember his ending quite, though I have a vision, like a image in my head. But do we think that he changed for the better?
I think he changes. But I think what we still saw from Neil is that he's not in control of his own life. He's like, he saws other people telling him what to do.
Yeah.
And
okay. Yeah. I couldn't remember what happened.
He just left. The house was on fire. He has his duffel bag. He walks up to Patty and just walks away.
Right. Yeah.
That was the end for him.
Mm-hmm. So
but I wonder how I wonder how his and Diane's dynamic either change, because Diane is improving and at one point, I think she realizes that she was using Neil as a crutch for
Mhm.
not falling back into her alcoholism. But I do wonder, like, whether they'd fall into a pattern, or like, or if Diane would be able to hold up certain boundaries. I do think those two characters have such chemistry and such an interesting dynamic. Um, I
Well,
would love to see, like, maybe a little episode or two just about
He's
their
just
their
Neil
thing.
looking for another woman to take care of him, another mommy.
mhm.
Patty was his mommy for a while, and then Diane, of course, she's even an older woman. Like Diane is mommy now, you know?
Dan's definitely the auntie. The scene
Mhm.
where so Diane is growing, and I think Diane does care for him, does have love for him, right? Like maybe he was a crutch, but it became a little bit more. But when they were having the conversation, she looked at Neil. She said, maybe we can leave, but not if you're like this. I'm too. She said she was 100 and some odd days sober or whatever it was. Me. It's like, work on yourself, and we'll see. So I think
Yeah.
for her, it's like. I don't think she feels trapped with her husband. I think she's choosing like that life. And I think she's like it's like for her, it's like she's not gonna leave her husband for a drunk. That doesn't
Right.
make any fucking sense. But if you improve, I would leave my husband for you. I don't see an issue with that. So I think like, yeah, I would love to see like a future episode. Like, does Neil like change? Does he just end up homeless? Does he end up finding another Kevin? Like what is Neil's plan? Because he's
Yeah.
played incompetent for so long. Like even like at 33, telling Allison that he can't hold a job because he gets overwhelmed was insane to me.
Oh, little
Mm.
neurodivergent little guy
Yeah, I was
there.
like, "Where's the autism diagnosis, sir?" I was like, "I'm
Yeah.
gonna need a diagnosis, please."
Yeah.
Well, it was just like, how are you? How and you're saying it as like not an excuse, as a reason.
Yeah.
He used it as a reason, not an excuse. He's like, I get overwhelmed.
Mhm.
Diane plays
Crazy.
like in the small town narrative. There's like they all don't have moms, but there's a mom in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, and I think about that too. How we always say like it takes a village, but when everyone's fucked up in the village, it just becomes a little bit of a dysfunction. But there's still like love and affection in the fucked up village. I do think that's why people stay. It's like the fucked up is better than the strange good that you don't understand. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh, for sure. Well, that's how we get stuck in patterns in general. It's like we're looking for comforting patterns like to repeat from our childhood, and often those are not the ones that are going to actually take us to the next level. They're going to
Yeah.
keep us stuck. Yeah.
How do we feel about Allison and Patty kind of being like, let's die alone together?
Very like go ahead.
Yeah.
I was
Other-
gonna
I
say
think
kind
there's-
of a decent decision actually for them to be like, you know what, relationships maybe not the move right now. You know, like.
But then
I-
like what's the idea? Is it just that they stay living in that town and just continue like whatever blase
think
life they have?
They're
Or
just
what's like
affirming like their friendship. Like they've just become inner circle to each other. But as far as like whether they grow into a healthier place or not, I don't know. But I do think that was a good decision for Tammy and Patty to end it, because what was even going on there, and for Allison to stay single for however long she needs to.
It was like they needed a Golden Girls era. Like sometimes I look at people in my life and think like you've never had a close friendship and it shows and you need to have one. Like you need to have a close friendship with somebody. And so I thought it was like it was a fun friendship story, but also it was so dysfunctional that I was like, "Oh my God, you need better friends." But then this is all you have. And like so they kind of build off of that. Like the anxiety I felt through this show was intense. Like I was so, and it's a show, but I'm
Same,
so
girl. Oh
I
my
feel
fuck.
it. I feel when I watch this level of
writing.
dysfunction. Oh my gosh. And it was good. I would recommend it to people for sure. Just to ask yourself like, hey, who are you in the story? Are you any of these people? Because we might want to look at our life if that's the case. And like maybe that's even Tammy, right? The cop, even her, like, oh, I'm well dressed and I'm very beautiful and I have this great job and I'm the good person in the story. You're fucked up.
Mhm.
And that was the point, is like this whole village. I really do feel like I see this like magical bubble and it's like a portal into another universe a little bit. But man, my heart goes out to them, same like human to human. I think my heart goes out to all these people that used to be babies and grew up in
Yeah.
this environment and became these adults.
They're just also traumatized. Clearly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's I kind of saw. I was like, okay, there's two different ways you could interpret their choice to like die alone together. It's like, yes, maybe they're coming together and like choosing again with the like decentering men thing. Like, we don't need a man to make us happy. We don't
Right.
need, we don't need to. We're like living for ourselves, and we're gonna have each other, and we're gonna die happy together. Or there's the kind of like complacency way you could look at it. Like, okay, this is as much growth as we can manage, and we got there. This is good enough for us. I think you could kind of interpret it either way.
Do you think that any of the characters didn't, I don't want to say it this way, but like kind of got away like scot free? Like, do you think any of them weren't held accountable appropriately?
All of them.
Yeah.
Well, except for Neil. Neil was the only person that was by the end held accountable, I guess. But who, like, Allison?
I mean,
got
Kevin
everything she
died.
wanted.
That's kind of like
Yeah.
something.
She should be in jail. So arguably, so should Allison.
Oh yeah, in the comments, Pete just
Oh.
dipped. Like he
Yeah, the
He just
dad.
left. He's like, I'm not dealing with any of this. I'm out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, true.
How do we feel about that? That idea that these people did the best they could with their circumstance, but it was so bad that even their good still wasn't good enough in a sense. Like they needed to be held accountable, but like by who? The state, the government. I mean, Patty hitting that drunk driver over the head I'm not going to get over it. He was
Right.
like boring. The one situation that I was like, oh, this is going great. This is like the best case scenario. And Patty comes in and hits this innocent man over the head. And I'm like, oh, girl, like this.
Yeah.
And I get what she was thinking, but also I hate Allison for putting that in her head in the first place. I hated every moment that any of them went off and didn't tell the other person what was going on. It just felt so. At some point, I'm like, this is bad writing. But then at one point, and this is my thing, I have to accept that somebody is this person.
Yeah.
That somebody is this person. It's like, how many zombie movies do we have to watch before we realize what to do in a zombie apocalypse? Like, how many horror films do we have to watch before we don't go check what's in the basement? It's like that's what this show felt like, where I was like, this can't be real life. And then I was like, this got to be someone's life. This has to be someone's life.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
That's a bunch of people's lives.
Mhm.
What's interesting is in the beginning of the show, Allison does use like straight up, like I would say abusive manipulation in order to get Patty to do what she wanted to do
Victim.
as far as like going to get the pills.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like she was definitely mirroring, Kevin in that sense.
Like that
Mhm.
puppy dog. Like, oh, it's fine. I'll just do it myself. You know what? I brought you into this. I'll do it myself. It's fine. And then you bow your head and you
Yeah.
walk away. And the person goes, no, wait, I'll help you.
Yes.
But that's who Allison's character was, right? Like she kept playing victim, and that's how she had these people in her life to an extent, right? Like the only reason she is really like with Kevin is because she was sad, depressed, and then she was like, okay, I'll join this relationship. These people seem to have fun. Maybe my life will be better. And then that kind of exudes with Patty, where she keeps like Patty looks at her, she goes, you saying you want to kill yourself or you get drinking and driving when she got into the accident when she was drunk driving. Patty looks at her and she goes, you getting drunk and almost killing yourself is just you playing victim again. And I think that's like, it clicked for Allison. That's when she decided to like leave and take all the responsibility. Like you can blame everything on me, all of this. I think that's like, that was her changing point. And that was the changing point for Patty to like maybe realize that they're actual friends versus like her just falling into being a sidekick for someone. Cause like, oh shit, Allison is actually that's why she misses Allison so much, right? Is that like
The only one to
she
take
wanted
care of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a sense.
so
Yeah. Mhm.
Well,
I think yeah.
But what
No,
the
go ahead.
show did perfectly, and I think which is something I try to practice in like meditation or anything that I'm doing, is how perspective changes how you tell yourself your story. And Allison tells herself a very particular story. And it goes back to that library scene where she's trying to do research for how to kill her husband. And the woman's just like, well, why can't your main character just like leave the marriage? It's all about that perception and what like introspection and tools give you is a different option. Like they didn't have any of the options. And as the series progressed, they each got better tools to make different decisions. And that's, I think, how all of life ends up and how it works. I'm so fascinated at the idea that Kevin just got drunk accidentally, then killed himself in the fire. And then I kind of wonder what like Kevin's ghost is thinking a little bit. He's probably, he's probably really frustrated with himself. But also, I will say there's sort of, and I mean this in the best way possible, sometimes it's a blessing when people die.
Again. I was going to say, does he win again because he doesn't have to actually face any of the consequences?
I don't know. In some ways, I think that's true. But in other ways, I think like, thank you for dying.
Yeah. Oh,
you like freed Allison.
As the person, as Allison, you're like, thank you for dying.
Mental breakdown, like when everyone left and you realized he couldn't contact anybody. Like, I think he did face it somewhat. Like, he didn't fully escape. Although the way he died was probably pretty painless, the smoke inhalation and just.
I'm not looking for anyone to suffer here, but I will say that I do. It's interesting that when people die, how it frees us. I hear about this from children with abusive parents, where they feel like once their parents die, it's like, okay, I can tell my story. I can like feel free. I don't have to think about this person calling me again. And that is a fascinating idea to my brain, where people's journeys sometimes do take them to like an end. But the end is like, I felt like she was free when she saw the house burn down. I felt like, I felt like I could breathe because Kevin was gone. Because you know what I hated the idea of is like Allison freeing herself, moving, and like Kevin bombarding or following her or stalking her. But you know what's ironic is I don't know if Kevin would do that based off of how he was written. He replaced her.
Yeah.
So then if he found out Allison was alive, would he have stalked her?
No, he replaced her when he thought Allison died.
Right. Yeah. So if she was alive, do you think?
Her leaving him would be him losing. Right. Yeah. And it would add the fourth mark to life. Which is what he can't handle. He can't handle being on the
Right, like in the beginning when he thinks the neighbor stole the package,
he can't let it go.
It'd be very similar to that.
Yeah, and he did threaten her, right? He did threaten her.
I think the 3 marks of life against Kevin were.
Wait, repeat that?
But like on his board, he had Kevin 600, life 3. What were the 3?
Wasn't it 6 or something? Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Like, what does he consider life getting one over on him?
Probably
that he didn't like somehow. Probably what?
The hoodie would be one.
Yeah, the hoodie. Maybe. And there's something innocent about that. See how like the hardest thing in his life to happen is his hoodie not showing up. Like in some that's in some ways why Kevin
Allison's money to buy.
Yeah. That's why Kevin comes off like almost like it's just Kevin. That's who Kevin is. But who Kevin is so dangerous. Like Chat said it earlier, and I agree that there's a level, and I say this on stream all the time. There is a level of ignorance or stupidity that is more dangerous than somebody who's deliberate. At least somebody who's deliberate is like, they have an active, present mind. I can talk to them. I can be like, okay, so you made this decision. Somebody who's like ignorant is almost like, it's like they don't even know how to even fathom the idea that they could do this, which makes them more dangerous.
Yeah.
And he has everyone around him enabling him too. So it's like,
absolutely,
it adds to his own ignorance. He's ignorant to himself, right? Because he has all these people around him kind of like cheering him on. He has yes men. So it is like, that was like weird thinking about the show is like, because I've said this in the beginning. I was like, all she had to do was like, she chose to date him. She chose to be with him and then chose to stay with him for 1 year, 2 years, 3. Like at what point in time how long does it take for you to realize that the person in front of you is actually like, maybe it's micro cuts, but like how long would it really take to realize, this person's a shit person and I'm getting no benefit here?
Took me 5 years on again, off again in my 20s. And it was every time I kept thinking, he just doesn't know better. He needs therapy. He cannot know what he's doing. He seems so confused. Why doesn't he get what's happening?
Weren't married and sharing property together.
No. I never. And every time he said we should get married and have a baby, I was like, we can get married and have a baby when you go to therapy. And I used birth control, never shared money, never married this man. Best thing my 20 self ever did. But she had 2 parents who were together. I had a family to rely on. I had enough sense about me. I was the breadwinner. I had enough resilience and smarts to know, like, I know what you'll be like if you go to therapy, but if you don't go to therapy, then we're not. But then I stayed anyways, like through an on again, off again relationship. And it makes me realize now, and a lot of it wasn't physical abuse. It was emotional. It was like manipulation where he would white lie or play dumb about things that just it didn't even matter.
Didn't matter.
But they mattered eventually because there was 1,000 cuts of stupid white
Those
lies.
are the worst.
And I was like, dude, like I'm trying to help you, help me help you. Like, you know, and it wouldn't sink through. So yeah, like there's something about Kevin, and like before you find out the mask before the mask, you think is just like he just needs help. He just needs something. He just needs, but no, like at some point you got to walk away from this person, you know?
It does take an average of 7 times to leave an abusive relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And each attempt, like,
yeah,
Is that
an
a thing? I
actual
have no idea.
yeah, that was definitely me, where I was just like, because they bring you back, right? They're just like, please, I can't. We're so good together, and you think about all the good times. And you're like, yeah. Which, by the way, Allison was starting to kind of get along with Kevin.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There was like
was-
some good times.
Yeah, when the Tammy papers and all that thing came out. See, for me, I've never dealt with like that type of manipulation. The only I've dealt with like the I'm gonna kill myself manipulation. Type. That's the one where it's like that's fucking. I don't even know how you get out of that one. I don't even know how I got out of that one without like being like. I mean, I guess if they do, it's you can't really hold yourself accountable. It's
Yeah.
that shit's tough. So with with Kevin's manipulation, I think it was that like that feeling of in group, right? It's harmless if we're doing it to everyone else. And so do I don't know, do I blame Allison for being like complacent with that for 10 years?
I think she's responsible. But I don't, without blaming anybody, I think we're all responsible for our
Okay,
lives.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
not
like,
blaming her as in like
yeah,
put the
yeah,
blame
yeah.
on her. I'm saying,
but I
like,
think she is like at some point she's a grown up. Like you're responsible for your life circumstance to some extent. Obviously, all of us are.
And I want to know, like, I would have loved to known for Allison. Obviously, it was like a combination of everything that led up to this. But like, when for her was her like turning point of disliking this life?
That's a good point. Actually,
when in the relationship did you start to feel like, oh, I don't know if you know if things are gonna go?
I literally think it was when she found out about the money. Because prior to finding out about the money being lost, she was like, I just need to get him to get moving.
That's
on this
true.
Move.
But
And she
but
was like ready to.
but in the opening scene, she's in the dramatic. She leave like in the opening scene, she leaves
Right.
the living room, is in the dramatic world. So she had that feeling of disconnect, at least from the opening scene. So I want to know when she got that like when that disconnect started.
Oh, good
Because
point.
Initially, it was I'm depressed. My dad just died. I'm in a low place. So it would have to be at least like maybe a few months of just seeing pure joy and
Yeah.
like being blinded by this. Because she moved in with him after 2 months of the
like
relationship.
she must have been in the sitcom world initially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like she would have to have been. And then how long was she in the sitcom world until she realized she isn't?
Or maybe maybe you're only in the sitcom world when you're with Kevin.
Yeah.
So maybe like everybody though, when they're not with Kevin, ironically enough, maybe if we were following Neil, he would actually be
Neil, remember when Neil had his scene where he was in the closet?
yeah.
At first it was just Neil when they barged in and he
That
fell out
was
of the
just
closet.
sitcom.
It was in the sitcom world.
Oh, you're
And
right.
it
You're
was
right.
Neil,
over
because
the
Neil was still in that perspective. So I think the shift of world
Yeah.
is perspective, right? If you were
Yeah.
friends with Kevin, if you were part of the in group, you were in the sitcom world. And if you were just with like Allison, lack of Kevin, then the perspective was all focused like on how she sees the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, Chat said something really good where she said, Allison going straight to wanting to kill Kevin shows how unable she was to take accountability for anything herself, which is so true, right? Like, if you could take accountability, if she could face herself and realize, like, this, you're responsible for how your life turns out, and like you participated in this. Like, life is participatory. You participated. And so, like, you have to stop participating. But then what does that look like? And that's why deconstructing your life is so scary, because, like, oh my gosh, well, if I unravel this and I unravel this and I unravel this, like, what if nothing is left? What if? Like, you know, what if that's kind of exciting, but then I can see the fear in it.
But there's also like confronting yourself if you have been like a shit person is like coming to grips of like, oh shit, am I a loser? Have I just been a loser? Did I make myself this thing and now I have like live in this world where like in my mind, it is tough to kind of like confront yourself.
I will say, I think her being in the drama world in the first episode isn't necessarily an indication that something snapped in the relationship quite yet. because in the funeral scene, we also see she's in the drama world by herself. She was in the drama world before Kevin ever came into the picture.
So is that her
Mm.
default self?
I think that's her default. And then when her mom comes in, it's sitcom. She sees Kevin, it's
Oh.
familiar, it's sitcom. But like when he's not there, she's always in drama world. And so I do think like her realizing that she needed to break from Kevin was when she was like, oh shit, this money that was being collected
Okay, I
over
get.
the past 10 years. Now I
Right.
need
So,
to
so
make a
she
deeper
herself,
change.
yeah. So from her perspective, it's always been dramatic, and then from like the people that she seems to surround herself with, their perspective is okay. That's actually really that
Interesting.
kind of gives more like backstory to her and like how
Mhm.
she copes with her life.
Yeah, she takes
Yeah.
everything on very heavy,
Yeah.
serious.
And then she needs familiar to feel like okay. Like she doesn't want to feel good. She just needs familiar.
Mm.
This reminds me of a video essay I saw on the show, and they were mentioning how, sitcoms are usually kind of a fluffy way to talk about real life, and dramas are like the real way to talk about real life. But I actually find both of these to be like, what's the other version? Like, where's the actual, like, is this the only two ways to talk about real life? Like, are there other ways to explore life? So I kind of wondered, what would this show look like in a third setting? And what would that
Mhm.
third setting be? Like, what would it look like?
I
You
like
know?
a dramedy. I would think.
Yeah.
Have you guys watched Shameless?
Yeah.
Mhm.
This to me would be similar to Shameless. So it's like low income neighborhood, people kind of living their lives and just product of their environments. Can you
Mhm.
get out? Whose fault is it? Where do you put the blame? And watching like the people change and grow.
Yes.
I think that would be the perfect like medium for for this show. It's like have them in that kind of like dramedy life where yeah, you're a piece of shit, but there are still good times and there's laughs. But like the overall is like, oh, we live horrible lives. We need to get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Shameless
do we
is
need to do to change?
that's another one of those shows. High anxiety the whole time. You're worried
Mhm.
about everyone. Everyone's kind of like, Frank's useless and all these things are happening. And like all the kids are a product of their environment. And then some kids have some chances of getting out. But then you go right back to this idea of like, I need to be there for my family. I need to love my siblings. I need
Can't
to
leave
love this.
Southside.
Oh my
Can't leave
gosh.
south side of Chicago. Can't leave Harlem. You
Exactly.
can't leave the hood that you grew up in.
Right.
And because like this is your family, this is who you are.
Right.
Like it's that phrase you said earlier. Like you can't take the guy. You can take the guy out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the guy. And
Yeah.
so it's like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like I'm a product of my environment, so then I should just learn to survive in this environment because if I go anywhere else, I can't do the things
Yeah.
I do here. I don't have like the facilities to do that.
This reminds me too of JD Vance, our very questionable vice president, who actually, according to his life story, left his small town and the Appalachian, mountain. What is it called? Appalachian Mountains? Yeah, left there, but thought he was better than everybody else and resented them for being who they were, which is another way of being like gross. Like, that's not good. You don't want to resent these people who are born into hard times, who suffer. You don't want to resent these people. You just want to leave the dysfunction.
It made you.
It made you, bro. And like, not even like, you got to pay homage to where you've come from, but also dream for people to get out into a better life or to bring better life to this place. Like, that's the irony, is like, there's so many ways to be bitter and resentful of the way you were born into the world. And there's so many ways to be like creative and beautiful and change that place. Like, so many communities go back to the place they were born and bring goodness to that community. And I think that that's like the irony of sort of all of these characters is like, did nobody think about bringing goodness to the community? Like, none of them were community people. None of them were thinking about doing right by the community. All of them were in survival mode, just complete survival mode.
I feel like that's how the whole town is, though. The whole town is operating in survival mode. You have the ladies.
That because of the guy who OD'd in the library. Like everyone
Oh,
is just,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the town of Worcester is meant to like you are supposed to think like white trash.
Worst. Yeah.
Yeah, that like you are supposed to think like white trash when you think of like the neighborhood, and it's just like they didn't have a community. They had 4 people that they knew.
Yeah.
And it's like you are the sum of the 4 people that you hang out with, 5 people that you hang out with, and those were the only ones. Like the ladies at the salon, right? Like the lady whose nephew was the hire for murder. Like she didn't even really care about her nephew, right? But she let him live with her. So like I care enough to like provide something, but it's kind of like that, like love no love type situation. I love you because I have to. I'm caring for you because I have to, because you're the only person I have around. And so it's like, is that love, or is that just like, you're just here together? We got to make it through. We got to make it.
And
out
he didn't care
somehow.
about her either. He didn't care about nobody.
Yeah.
He was like nasty. But that was crazy. Like him dying and like that whole scene, that whole part, that whole her sneaking into his place and Allison trying to plant stuff. The anxiety I had, the whole part, I was like, this is bad. This is all bad. All of this is bad. None of this is redeemable behavior. It's stuff like that where I'm like, what else are you capable of?
Well, that's the thing. How it's interesting to think about them as being so capable to break into buildings, buy an identity, do this whole thing, but like to have a conversation is the difficult thing for you.
But it was also immeasurably difficult for her to get some pills. Let me just say.
Yeah. Like you had to go to Vermont.
Yeah.
What? Like, but like the fact that she's willing to go like above and beyond to get like this goal accomplished, right? Like you found plans, you found people, you did everything to get like the goal accomplished of like killing and leaving. I feel like if you put that same energy into like figuring out how to get out, or like maybe like establishing a friendship with Patty beforehand, and then now you have a friend, now you have a partner, now you can work your way out. But no, she just like, she put all of her fucking knowledge and power into like, all her mental power into just like, yep, how can I deceive and kill and just move on?
Yeah.
Which is weird to watch from that person. Like I think the character of Allison was written really, really, really well.
Yeah.
Because you don't expect any of these things out of her, and you're like, she's not going to be able to accomplish anything. She accomplished fucking damn near everything in every like step of this try. So it's like,
which shows you she's smart, like smart enough to do all of these things. She's competent.
Capable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's competent and capable. So it's like, why are you doing this to yourself? What is this like? Like she's self-defeating.
Oh, some of the smartest people I know are so self-defeating. This is why I know you guys, we talked about it a little bit off stream, but like now that I'm reviewing BoJack Horseman, it's like, yo, you're so self-aware and so like not introspective about it. Like you can't do anything about it. Like you can name it, place it. And again, I'm only on season 2, no spoilers. So like, I get it. Like hopefully there's some introspection that's going to happen in a deep way here. But it's one of those things where I met some of the most smart, intelligent, charismatic, self-aware people who are so useless. Like I know people don't like that word. Chad and I are working on like trying to figure out a new word than useless.
Inept.
Inept. It's a great word. They're so inept that it's like, it hurts my soul how you can have all of these skill sets and not know how to put it together into a shape. It's like watching somebody try to put a square in like a round, peg or whatever, a hole. It's like, my dude, please. Like, how do you have all of these skills and you can't do anything with it? And that's what kills me about humanity is like, I feel like, it's so capable, but like fumbles, and I can't blame it, right? Humans are going to human. But Allison is like, she's not capable.
I think the problem is it becomes like your environment and your network, right? So it's like she's capable, but if she has no one to hone in these abilities, if she has no one to like encourage her, if she has no one to like kind of mentor her into using these abilities, you just have an ability. Like if I can make the most amazing cake in the world, but like if there's nowhere to do it, if there's nowhere to share, if there's no one to help me like grow, then me having all these things means nothing.
That's true.
Her being capable doesn't do anything if she has no friends to help her like kind of hone in that capability.
Actually, the irony of that is like they say like, oh, so you can make a cake, but do you know how to market it? You can make a cake, but you know how to get a business license. You can make a cake, but you know how to find customers. It's like this is the conundrum of life is like, just because you have the talent doesn't mean you have the marketing skills. Like they say you want to be a YouTuber, you don't just YouTube. You're also a marketing person. You're also a networker. You're also a whatever. Like you're never, the thing you're good at is it needs so many other things to make it actually become something. Yeah, you're totally right.
And that's something I deal with like a lot with myself is like, sometimes I feel like, holy shit, do I just not have like, why can't I do things on my own? And it's like, well, how many people really can do things on their own? You need a network, a team. Like
I agree.
You need people to do things.
Yeah.
You can't do it on your own. And so it's like, for a lot of people, maybe the people they have around them just don't equate to their skill set. It's just that you just have a friend, but you don't have a partner. Totally. And so it's like they're like, in the same way, that's where Allison would feel trapped, right? She's so capable, she's so smart, but then she ends up just staying with the townies and like the dumbest versions of like who she's meant to be around.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, heck, I couldn't do this panel with everybody showing up or like doing a panel. I can't do it without people being here. Like even with YouTube, like, I mean, I rely on people. Like I rely on my partner to help me with the tech, or I rely on just everything takes community. I mean, Barack Obama said it best. Like no one does anything alone, but no one does anything alone, but you still got to do some of it on your own, but not in the way that people think. Like it does take you. Like Allison can't be saved. She has to save herself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
it's kind of like gears in a watch. Like there's a whole watch, but if you take out one gear, the gear itself may be a great gear, but it doesn't do anything if it's not with
right. And you got to do your job. Like you have to do what you're meant to do. Like all of us are meant to do something in that sense. And go ahead, Arena. I see you.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like the fact that Allison and Kevin are both only children, I think, is what stunted them in a sense, because Allison had no one. Like she also had no close friend of any kind.
And no friends.
Friends.
She had no
children
friends.
in an unhealthy home environment, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like the person who Allison was wouldn't have friends in that town. She was like written as someone who was supposed to get out of that situation. Right? She had good grades. She was on track. She was on so on and so forth. So it kind of makes sense that she doesn't have anyone. And I guess like that for me, it's always explained that like loneliness and why she even sought out Kevin to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But then with Patty knew who Kevin was, and she met Allison right before that they did Patty. I feel like Patty let her date Kevin in order to find a friend, like another girl almost.
Was Allison friends with Patty first?
No, she met Patty at the bar. And then Patty walked away. Then like later on, it's she's with Kevin and Neil and like a third other guy.
Yes.
And then Allison introduces herself and like there we go. And then Patty goes, "Oh, so you're gonna go on a date with Kevin?" And she goes, "Yeah, I think I am." And she goes, "Okay." And I wonder if it's like
I don't think Patty was like gunning to be friends with Allison, because over the 10 years, it just seems like they were he was ignoring her.
Yeah.
But I think Patty's perspective at that moment was like, that's none of my business. Like what, like what if Allison is just like, she doesn't know anything about Allison.
Okay.
Because maybe there's a version of a person that could be like a Kevin with a Kevin and they feed off each other and then they're just kind of pieces of shit together. I mean, who knows?
I feel like she didn't like Allison because Allison was kind of that like, I want to be better. And like Patty didn't want to be better. Patty was content where she was. Allison always wanted a better life. So I feel like maybe that was like the disconnect in the friendship. But I don't know. I feel like there was a reason they let us see the scene of her like kind of like, "Oh, are you gonna go on a date with Kevin?" And her being like, "Yeah," and then kind of that straight face of like wonder. I don't know. I feel like I was looking into that a lot.
Okay, I'm sure if I watched the series again, I'd come away different thoughts. But here's the impression I was left in with that scene in mind. I kind of thought maybe Patty was thinking, I wonder if you're as like a piece of shit like the rest of us. Because like you think you're better than us, but you're not better than us. You are us. And I wonder if Patty in that moment is like, you're going to go out with Kevin? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, like...
Okay.
And that's the impression I got.
Can't be better than.
Well, she's dressed all fancy. Yeah,
you dressed all fancy.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit, but maybe that's just what I left away with thinking is like, because sometimes don't you ever wonder like when you meet, like when you're in a kind of a meh position, or like I have so many brothers and maybe not all of them are the greatest, love them, but like sometimes I wonder like, why are you gonna date my brother? Like, can't you see he's a mess? He's busy. He's trying to find Christ. What are you doing? Like sometimes I do judge people that like, I'm like, what are you coming into his life for? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if that was kind of the attitude Patty maybe had, like, hey, what are you doing? But then not enough to save her, indifferent to saving her, not interested in warning her. Patty didn't. Patty's not like a real one in a sense. It's not like Patty told her about the money thing. It's not like Patty tried to look out for her girls. It's not like she's a feminist and she's trying to watch out for the ladies. She literally was just like, like
his job is enabling the status quo. That's like what her role is.
Yeah, upholding the patriarchy.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Their friendship, when they actually do decide to be friends, it's interesting, especially, talking about how we can't change alone. We do need like someone. So it is interesting. It's like, okay, we finally decide to be friends. And then this whole adventure kind of happens, and they're both able to like go on a journey and make some changes.
Yeah.
No, watching it. I'm not gonna lie. That end scene with Kevin, I waited the whole show. I just want to see once what Kevin looked like in the real world. In the real world, if you're watching it from her perspective, yeah, dude is just like an abusive drunk.
He's scary, bro.
Dude is just a scary abusive drunk. He really was.
Oh.
That was
Totally gross. Yeah.
and like his character made her character made a lot more sense in the way that she sees him and how everyone else sees him. And so like having that break of like watching him kind of spiral and watching him do all that, I was like, oh shit. So like now I have to sit and think about like, if this whole time we were watching it just through her perspective, what do those jokes look like?
Oh,
What does the Rageversary look like? What does it look like all through Allison's perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And like
Also,
that would be
sorry.
that would be intense. No, I was done.
I was gonna say, basically all of the characters are dealing with some form of alcoholism and or substance abuse.
yeah.
Allison, Kevin, Neil, Patty, when she was like hungover like 3 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
The all of like the main crew, like Tammy didn't seem to have any substance abuse
Stop.
issues. Patty's first fiance that was trying to be healthy or whatever, he didn't seem to have any of those kinds of issues, but it seemed like they all fed on each other in that sense too. Because Allison, I think it started with like her dad seemed to be an alcoholic as well.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know about her mother. Her mother was a narcissist, but her dad probably dealt with the abuse through his alcoholism, which then Allison picked up from him. And then Kevin gets the wombo combo of being a narcissist and an alcoholic who surrounds himself with other alcoholics. That was an interesting theme too, because I know that a lot of people, there's always the joke of like, oh, there's nothing to do in the Midwest but drink.
Yeah.
And like,
No.
prevalent.
I was
like,
gonna-
drinking town with a football problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
trope.
that's what I learned about living in a small town is they genuinely not everybody obviously, but there's a beer money culture, meaning I'll work until I have enough money for beer and then fuck it, like we're just making money to buy beer, which again like must seem so much more accessible in some ways. Like I just got to work enough at like Walmart or whatever my job is. There was one Walmart in town. That's why it came to mind. That was like the store. That's like where a majority of people were employed. It's like the Walmart, the Home Depot. And it's like, okay, enough money this week to buy enough pizza and beer for the weekend. And that's the cycle of my life. That's the cycle of my life. And then maybe I'll get married and have kids, but who knows? Like the median income when I moved to that small town was like $25,000 a year. Like very different life. And of course they all got priced out in the 4 years that I lived there because of course everyone came up from the mountain. So like, or came up from Phoenix into the mountain. And you think about that, like you think about these small towns, what they do in their free time, no desire to go beyond that. Like that's why I think too, they must find it crazy to hear people talk about, $75,000 is not enough in California. And they're sitting here like looking at you like, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're sitting here like, yeah, but I'm trying to like buy a house or I'm trying to do these things or like, I get it. Like the lifestyles are so different. Like our worlds are so far apart. Actually, Kevin owned his house. We don't know if Allison's name was on the thing. And then the Patty and Neil had the house from the parents, right? The parents. What would their life have been like if they didn't have those houses? Like in a way, you know what I mean? Like that
Probably
alone.
a privileged position in their town. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people either inherited their homes in that
Up
town
made it in that way,
because like who were the workers in that town, right? Like what
Yeah.
were like you looked around like when they walked around the city, there wasn't like much going on. There was a bookstore, a clothing store, a
very
liquor store, a shop.
Yeah.
There's
very
just places to work. There's places to get a paycheck. There's and I don't think a lot of these people would be able to survive
careers.
had they not had proper ownership of their houses. They'd be renting,
Sure.
right? But then how are you making enough to rent? Because rent is going to go up eventually.
I mean, that's
They're
the
gonna
kind of
need-
neighborhood you get gentrified. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
at 50 years, that place isn't going to be the same. So, like, it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting too, because we talked about earlier of the community coming and bringing some good into there, but then that's also what gentrification is or isn't. It's like, what does it look like to bring
Sure.
good to a community like that without also displacing.
Well, hopefully it would come from within the community
Yeah,
and
within,
not the outside coming in to like outprice the locals, right? Because you're right. Like I don't want uplifting the community and gentrification to be synonymous. I
Yeah.
feel like those are two different things. But gentrification, like gentrifiers think that's what they're doing, but they're just trying to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
Like you don't care about the local community. You want them out of there.
They just move that community somewhere else.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
It just disperses and goes somewhere else,
Which is-
and it
yeah.
keeps growing. But then, like, how much responsibility does that community have for itself, right? Like, why are you guys allowing your town, your community, your city, whatever it may be, to just like do this? It seems like everyone is an individual living in a community instead of a community living together.
That's a cycle of trauma. That's why like I always talk about like activism, like the most activism related thing you can do is get therapy and go get help. Cause like you heal your community. Like like a healed community is a thriving community, and we all have problems. We all have things we could do. Like we all have reasons to face ourselves. And it feels like once you do that, you can heal your community so much better. I mean, I know when I went to therapy, I took those skills back to my family. That's not like the biggest fan of therapy. And I think it did help our family. I think we improved. Even though some of those people refused to go to therapy, I think I implemented enough tools from therapy to like get them to like heal over time, like much better off than they would have if I hadn't gone. If I hadn't been the kid to go to therapy. And like then like a few other my siblings followed. I think like 4 or 5 of us have been to therapy now, which is like a big deal. And a family I think it's a huge deal. So like, just mentioning it, just bringing it up, just talking about it. Like notice was there any therapy scenes in this show?
There was a recommendation for therapy when she went to the doctor's office.
Recommendation, but it was actually the number to the drug dealer, which was Patty.
That's true. So the community does not give a fuck about itself.
Damn, bro. Damn. And that's that cycle of trauma. Like I look at whole communities like that, and I just think generational trauma. Mm-hmm. It certainly didn't start even with their parents. It started with their great grandparents. Like that's like generations removed right there. That's like a lot.
Yeah, that's a stereotypical town that would view a therapist as like a quack,
Yeah.
So then if as we're talking, if that's the case, we're talking generational trauma, city doesn't care about, there is no community. Maybe Allison does have a point when she says she can't just leave, right? Like at least in terms of like where you feel like you're at and like looking around you and there is no escape. Yeah, maybe having $200 in your bank account and getting a divorce isn't isn't a feasible option. Maybe murder is the only way to fucking go at that.
That's what I was saying. Like at least then she could collect his life insurance because he does have that full-time job at the.
You have life insurance now?
Yeah, why she's so disappointed.
Sometimes jobs have like a.
Did he
like a full-time 9 to 5? That's not clear, but I think generally if you have a full-time job, they have some baseline of like a very basic life insurance that's at least like a year of your salary
or something.
I never worked at one of those jobs. I never worked at one of those jobs in my life. Yeah, that's interesting. I never imagined Kevin would be working at one of those jobs. I always felt like that was more corporate-y jobs, but maybe, you know what I mean?
Blue collar, if blue collar worker, if he was full-time, often they also have unions and like other.
There you go.
I had life insurance when I was like working in daycare.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her getting that payout. Man, that house is gone now, right? So that house doesn't exist for her. So she's gonna move in with Patty, right? That's gonna be the idea. Like she moves in upstairs. That would probably
make sense. Yeah.
She might be able to collect if they had a home insurance, which I don't know about like the laws and worse.
Would he have paid that home insurance?
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you're required to have it if you have.
Would he have paid it?
I mean, I guess if he doesn't. Yeah, if he didn't have a mortgage, then they probably didn't have home insurance. So.
Well, yeah, who knows? That's the thing with all these like small details. Is like, what is their life? Does she even know? If she doesn't know how much is in their bank account, does she even know? True. And this is a conversation I even heard recently from someone where they're like, oh, I was watching Frenemies. And Trisha was like, I check my bank account all the time because I'm always afraid there's not money in there. And Ethan's like, really? I just figure there's money in there. Like they talk about it, but we're talking about budgeting and like how we check our money. I check my bank accounts all the time because I'm always like budgeting. We have a family budget thing we do every month. We like sit down, make sure everything's good, make sure we know where our money's going. But I check it all the time because I'm also like the breadwinner in that sense where I'm like always making sure everything's good. But like, it's one of those things where I'm always talking to my partner about it. Like, I'm always like, ooh, we saved $10 here. Ooh, we saved $5 here. Ooh, look, like we made this goal. And like, we're always so excited. I just couldn't imagine being like, somebody asked in chat earlier, did she give up her power by giving up her knowledge of the money? It's not even about power. It's about dignity. Where is your dignity in this marriage? Where is your equal partnership in this marriage? You know, like, what are we even talking? There's no dignity in this union.
None. But I don't even think that's how they didn't have that vision even at all. It was literally just seemed like that's just what you do.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the person I'm in a relationship with now, and we're at that age, so I guess the next thing you're supposed to do is get married. So that's what we're gonna do, kind of a thing.
And it sounded like she went right from her mom's, you know, narcissistic hold to like her husband's with the hope of escaping and then ending up in the same hell. And I think that's a kind of a message to all of us to remember, like, you running away from your problems, like they go and chase right after you, girl. Like they are
Maybe
attached to
that
you.
is what was attractive to her about Kevin. You know, maybe she did see the jokey lightheartedness of him, and it did feel like an escape, you know, from her mom, even though it was just literally the same thing.
She said, she's like, you, why do I feel like you're the only person in this? No one in this bar is having more fun than you. And he's like,
oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it seems like she just went no contact with her mom. Like we never see her mom again after
That's a great point.
the funeral scene, which is also interesting because that's not really explored as much in the show. And I'd be curious to know if they were low contact, no contact, or if there was like, I guess, useless contact where her mom couldn't even give her like any marriage advice. I mean, she probably wouldn't have been able to, but like there was couldn't turn to her mom.
Her mom didn't seem like someone you could just call and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So I felt like anytime you would call her, like, let's just say she'd call her mom would just be shitting on her.
But
yeah, I'm surprised there wasn't even a scene. Oh, that's a good question.
Because like, how do they not even like run into her? And then Diane is her sister, I think, or is Diane her dad's sister?
Diane's her aunt. No, Diane's her aunt through marriage. She's married to Diana's married to her uncle.
Oh, so is Chuck her dad's brother or her mom's brother? I wonder.
I want to say her dad's, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you did touch on that. I do think she's no contact with her mom. I think her and her mom just stopped talking. I don't think her mom really cared for her much to like begin with. But Diane does feel like a maternal sense over even though she calls like that's my niece, but she does have like a little maternal sense over her.
I mean, yeah, she gives her all that money and she's like, I always wanted a daughter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming it's zero contact with her mom, and that's because like at the funeral, like her mom just kind of shitting on everything from like the ham to like you can't go to college to like your dad. Like it was just an amalgamation. I would assume that they stopped talking.
Yeah, Reddit is full of conspiracy theories about the parents. Like, this is so funny. And apparently everyone's like sharing their own like family dynamics and stuff. But apparently, like, according to Reddit right now that I'm quickly reading, yeah, there is no real information about her father or Allison's mom or exactly what they were supposed to represent, except the fact that Allison repeated a pattern, like the father being the enabler, Allison's the enabler. And like, let's talk about that. Like, is she not an enabler? She helps him with all of his little scheming.
She's kind of an enabler, yeah.
Yeah, like that's the irony of it all, right?
She resent her role eventually, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say like we're so much more responsible for so much in our life. Like I think that's what for me the introspection journey has been so helpful on is discovering, okay, what was me? What was things that happened to me? And what were things I had no control of, but I don't have to repeat patterns of? And it really helps you categorize things. And I wish Allison had a chance to say, okay, this was my upbringing. This was my choice. This was me repeating a cycle. This was me. I wish I could have seen her deconstruct her life into categories to really free herself from the burden of feeling like she's doing it all alone, or that it was always her fault, or that she was this child growing up in this environment and she was responsible for her childhood. Like, you're not even responsible for your childhood. You're responsible for your adulthood, the part where you actually have an opportunity to change what was your childhood. Like, you're not responsible for your childhood. That's your parents. Now you're responsible for your adulthood, though. And that is so much, in some ways, so much more meaningful, but it always has to come back to your childhood. You have to make peace with it. You have to make peace that that was your life, that those were your parents, and that these were the tools you were given. And now as an adult, you have more. And that's why I say on stream, okay, audience, that kids are watching us, young people are watching us, and we are the adults in the community now. We're already old. We're the aunties and uncles. We're the big kids table. And we have to send a message that like it gets better, you get better, and that your childhood is temporary. It has to be, you know? Yeah. So Allison was really healing. You gain control. You gain a better understanding. So Allison was, I think in some ways, like we're watching like a kid. Like Allison, like almost like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Her childhood self was.
In a way, yeah.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I feel like where the show ended, like her journey just began.
Yes, like her real journey. Oh,
her actual life is about to like start.
Yes, yeah,
for sure.
When we say that she's an enabler, there was like that. I don't necessarily know if she was, because she was the only reason no one liked her because she was the whiny person. But Kevin, no, but don't do this, and she always had like an alternative plan to Kevin's. It's just like Kevin never listened to her.
But she went along with it anyways, right? Didn't she always make the chili and always help out and always like
making him,
cleaning up after him and like, because Thou does protest too much. Yeah, like she can protest all she wants, but at the end of the day, like if you're still bailing him out of his mess and you're
enabling,
you're enabling. Like that's what's so hard about our participation in people's lives, because like you don't want to enable. I'm always terrified of enabling people's bad habits. But then and this goes back, I think, Ali, you said this earlier, what's the difference between enabling, abandoning, and putting down boundaries? Yeah. Because like I'm open with boundaries. I want to help you, but I also can't enable you because that's going to hurt both of us. But I also want you to know I'm not abandoning you. I'm just putting down a boundary that says like, I love you, but like, I can't participate in this.
Yes.
This, what you're doing. You know what I mean?
And some people, they don't have the awareness yet to understand the difference between those two things.
I did until therapy, for sure.
Yeah, same. Mm-hmm. Can feel like abandonment, even if it's not.
Yeah. And
that's why it's so hard to actually be that person to do the thing, because sometimes you even have the perspective to know that they won't be able to see that you're not actually abandoning them. That's how they're going to take it, but you still have to make that choice. And that's why it can be so hard. Yeah.
And that includes, I think, ourself. Like sometimes I think we hold on to the worst parts of ourselves because it feels like we want to be loved for everything that we are, even the ugly parts. But sometimes you gotta like love the ugly parts to like let them like go away. But at the same time, you got to put down a boundary even with yourself. Like I'm always negotiating with myself.
That's what we're trying to do when we won't let go of the person we should let go of. We're just trying to love the unlovable part of ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. And so why don't we just do that instead?
Yeah. And then like you'll set yourself free. I mean, how many great animated films are about that? Like the monster that's like clawing its way, and if you give it enough love, it sheds its ugliness and it becomes like this flower. Like we all do that, but the love is misconstrued by enabling. We mistake enabling for love.
Yes.
To think about mothers and their sons, bro. The amount of mothers and their sons, bro. Stop enabling your sons. But at the same time, I know you want to love them. But this is why I think even religion gives us so many good lessons about prodigal sons and loving your children and God's love for his people. Like we have the right literature to give us the right messages, but we're internalizing the wrong ones.
And who's interpreting the message, right? It's who's interpreting and teaching the message is like the huge issue, right? You love Christ all day, but Christians sometimes are.
Amen.
You know.
Amen. What do they say?
We can't really understand it until we go through that transformation, and then we're like, oh, that's what it means.
Yeah. No hate like a Christian's love.
No hate like a Christian's love, bro.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm looking at the character list.
Yeah.
I'm so like Sam was a necessary character.
Yeah.
Why did he open up a shop in a diner in Worcester? What is that?
Trauma. Okay, so tell me this. Were they not trying to relive their high school days? You know the people who think like high school is like your best days?
Did he open it because Allison lived there? Because
I think so.
I'm wondering.
So quickly
connected.
Like they reconnected
I think so.
right away.
I think so. I think he was chasing high school all over again. The love they had at 17, the dream he had then, the way he felt alive then. I meet so many people who are like high school is so far from me. I don't even think about high school, bros. Like high school is like I don't even like I was a kid. Like just a reminder, we were children in high school, literal children. So like I don't think about it that way, but people think of high school as their like adulthood. And I don't have that. So I think Allison and Sam thought of high school as like their real life.
In high school, yeah.
Yeah, like their chances of who they could have been in a sense. Like she was like this great, what is she, a runner or whatever?
Yeah.
She was a volleyball player, I think.
It's like literally when I hear people say like, oh yeah, I did sports in high school. Sir, that was 20 years ago. Nobody cares what you did in high school. Like nobody cares. Like, let's go, but they're stuck. They're stuck in this loop of high school.
25 years. Oh, no, 15 years ago over here.
Yeah. It's like, sir, ma'am, please. But yeah, I think Sam was
2
going.
years ago for me. Yep.
Yeah. I think they were going to heal that like kind of version of themselves or something, or going back to relive like their best days were high school. Like rest in peace, bro.
Mhm.
I wonder if Sam is worse than Kevin. Now that I'm thinking about it.
He's a different kind of horrible, right? Like marrying this woman. What did we think? What was her name? Jen?
Yeah.
Jen,
Was she a bad guy? Because she kind of felt like she kind of felt fucked over to me.
Yeah, no, she was
She-
just there. I mean, she was like a rich girl. She did
Yeah.
come from privilege or whatever.
Sure.
And it seemed like her parents were potentially like abusive in some sense towards
Definitely
Sam.
manipulative and controlling.
Financially manipulative. Yeah.
Maybe she was
But
like, I
also-
love the street boy, and I like he's wonderful, and this poor boy, he's something special. And his parents were like, no poor boys, that kind of energy a little bit.
But they still funded his restaurant. It was
So
Yeah.
they got married, and then there was the scene when they're in the kitchen, and he's like, "Oh yeah, because your parents are never gonna let me forget the helping you out." And she's like, "Well, you're a pretty big fucking project." I think like for her, she just
Yeah.
like snapped. It's like, hey, you keep complaining that my parents gave you the money, but it's like you wouldn't have the thing if they didn't. So shut the fuck up and just eat the fact that you're a project right now.
Or
Like,
don't ask them for the money and do it
Yeah.
yourself. Because like,
one or the other.
because if they're going to hold it over your head, because I know some people like that are like, oh, never share money with people because they'll bring it up, especially with family, like our in-laws. And then they'll expect you to run the business the way they want to run it. But then that's kind of the irony of it all is like, if you weren't ready to take on this responsibility, why did you do it? And then why'd you go to an economically struggling town?
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of a choice was that? Like, what were you thinking, sir?
Which is, I think, Brittany's point of like trying to relive high school. He's like goes back to his hometown. There's people that he's semi-familiar with. He's not surrounded by these rich. Like it's familiarity, right? Like his wife is rich, and so it's like they're probably in like a little snooty neighborhood, living like their life. And he's like, I don't want this. I want to make my own life. Backtracks to the people that he's familiar around, blows it all up.
Pulls his
But the
whole
fact
family back there. Yeah.
Jen went with him. I mean, I do think like
Yeah.
Jen's biggest sin is being one of those women that likes a project. She's like, I can
Yeah.
fix
Yeah.
him. And the fact
fix
and
him.
probably the fact
Like
that
a
he
rich
was
version of
Hey,
Patty. Mhm.
endearing and stuff too.
Mhm.
So I mean,
Yeah.
if that's her biggest flaw, then like okay, but that doesn't mean she deserves to be cheated on. And
Oh,
No. Yeah, they did
No,
her
the thing-
dirty.
she didn't deserve any of the things. Like nothing indicated that she like was like any of that was warranted. But I think that was like the whole thing of one showing Sam, who's supposed to be this like professional version, like the better version of
The
Kevin.
better.
But like you're watching it and he's still the same shit person. You can't like you're all the same people.
The way they presented Sam to my brain the first time I met him was the way your life should have been.
Mm.
But it
Mhm.
was the same shit. Like it's just the same shit. Even if you would have ended up with Sam, you would have stayed in the same shitty town with the same shitty people
Mhm.
and by the same shitty people. So yeah, really, what was the difference? Except Sam like came in a better package.
That's why when he asked her to leave and like she's like starting to like maybe like realize and like all that, she's like, no, I'm not trying to like, I want to be me. I don't want to be your wife.
Yeah.
I don't want to have like a life based on like you making my life better. You're not gonna make my life better.
Yeah.
I already tried that once.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big like. That's why I was proud of Allison when that happened. I was like, oh, you could have just did the easy way out. You guys both could have just left and you could have ran away like
They
you've
would've
been doing.
horrible together though. They do not make sense as a couple, really. Not to me.
It's just a high school fling. It's just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
like it's an old flame, right? It's a
The glory
rebound.
days. It's like,
the
yeah.
story, but not as like an actual couple. It's like,
Mm-mm.
yeah, they would not work.
I think that's maybe the first like real moment where Allison is like part of breaking her patterns, right? And that's why it's so hard is it doesn't just happen once or twice it happens same thing with like being like a death by 1,000 cuts. It's not the first cut, guys. And same with change. It's not like you do one good thing and now you're you do many good things over a period of time and now you have a new pattern. And now, I used to be a person who did this, but it's been so long now, I'm no longer that person. It's like, wow, like I can't believe it. Like I always find new things about myself where I'm like, oh my God, I used to be this person. Oh my gosh, I used to be this person. Like it's just kind of crazy when you think about when you change all the time and you're growing, you realize like, wow, I really can be a different person. But when you've been the same person all your life and now you're 45 or 35 I think it's so much harder because you don't have the reassurance that you can change. And then it must be a harder lesson to learn later in life,
I think for a lot of people, because it's something I learned, is like you have this internal monologue in your head. And a lot of the times it's negative and you feed into it. But something I like realized as I got older is like, how come you don't feed into the positive as much as you feed into the negative? You can tell yourself negative shit all day and you're going to believe it. That's fine. But also just tell yourself like the positive shit, reframe it. It's your mind. It's like you're in control of the way you perceive things to an extent. And like the way you see yourself and the way these people see themselves, like they just never took any time to be like, oh shit, I can be a better person. They're just like, oh, my circumstance is this. I'm stuck in my circumstance. I am my circumstance.
I would argue that Kevin has a pretty positive view of himself and tells himself pretty positive things about himself, which is why he was so shook when everyone left.
It's at a detriment though, right?
Right. So there's like it's not just about telling like
toxicity goes both ways.
Positivity, right? It's about having a realistic perspective of who you are and where you're at and where you could be.
Oh, Kevin was the only non-victim in the show technically. Like if you want to like from his like his life was amazing in his and like from his framing.
Yeah.
Right. His biggest problem was his feud with his neighbors. Like
But I think that's the distraction. He's high on the fake positivity to distract him from the realness of his insecurity and shame for how his inadequacies, right? So like he keeps himself in the delusion and then pulls everybody else into it, but everybody knows it's like cracking. And then it finally cracks when she offers him or says the divorce thing. And then we see the mask slip and we see what's really going on in Kevin's perception. And this is a typical narcissistic behavior in that sense. Not that I'm a therapist, is this idea of like, I'm wonderful. I'm great. It's very Trumpian, I'm the greatest. I'm the best. Everybody loves me. But deep down, he's like, I have small hands. And it's like, it's like this deep insecurity that Trump has that we all know is there. And same with Kevin. We all know he's thinking like, but I'm great. I'm wonderful, because it's like a cope, right? It's like I'm wonderful. I'm so good. I'm so good. It's like, but you're not. And everyone else knows it, but we're all pretending it's not true.
That voicemail he left Neil when he's like starting off, he's like, hey, listen, I got a great revenge scheme. So stop being a fucking idiot and get you're cracking. As the person, can't keep that pleasant, happy, like, come on over, let's do this thing anymore.
Yeah. It almost feels like, and I think this is really typical I think they call it like a narcissistic supply. That's why he can't be alone. He needs that constant like reassurance. And it's like the energy vampire mixed in. He never cares about anyone but himself, but he doesn't even care about himself enough to like be good to himself. And like, hence him, I guess, falling asleep and killing himself on accident.
Yeah. He drunk himself to death. Yeah.
Sure.
Him doing the trash can fire in the living room was like,
my God.
It was like, this is how you're gonna go out.
Like he brought in a whole roast pig and then like burnt that.
I can't believe what a waste.
Caused the
He's
power
such a pyro, Which apparently arson is like really highly comorbid with like low IQ narcissists, which
is what Tammy was saying, right? He kept trying to blame the neighbor, and she's like, no, he's a pretty intelligent person. That's not the profile for him. Usually he's a dumb loser. And then he's like, what? No.
Yeah. Man, I'm gonna know how many times has anyone seen the series? I've seen it twice. I bet if I watch it, I'm gonna find new things every time I watch it. I feel like it's one of those shows.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting actually that you bring that up, because for me, so I started out like, okay, the sitcom part's not funny. I hate Kevin. Then I was like, I hate Allison. Like, why doesn't she just divorce? Like, what is she doing? And then I started finding the sitcom parts funnier. And then at the very end, when he was in the drama world, I was like, oh, holy shit, like that's so scary to like be around someone like that.
Mm.
And I do wonder if on the second watch it'd be easier because Allison had like a quip. She had a quip every time when he would say something verbally abusive, she would say something back. So that almost, it's like with how much seriousness is this exchange happening, and it's difficult to because of the framing of the situation as a sitcom, the laugh track, it's hard to be like, oh, that was just like an abusive bullying situation.
On a serious,
In
like
your brain, you're like, haha, like instead.
like when he kicked the door on the Halloween episode where he kicked the door and he like hit her in the face, and then he's like, what did you expect? He's like, I just kicked the door. And she's like,
Right.
in my face. And then like you want to think about that in her perspective and how that happened. And
Mhm.
it, like instantly you can be like, okay, so he was probably not a cheery person when he was saying that. He's like, well, what do you mean? Oh, I just fucking did this. And she's probably like, yeah, you hit me in the fucking face, you idiot. And then he's just kind of like, oh well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
He just doesn't
the.
care.
Well, I
He doesn't
think.
care.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Maiden. I don't want to interrupt you.
No,
No.
I was just agreeing. Yeah.
I think this is like, I just had a realization too of that dynamic of she could quit back. She could almost like punch, like, you know what I'm saying? But like, it almost convinces you you're not in as bad of a place as you think you are, bad of a relationship as you think you are. Like, how abusive can he be if I can talk back? Like, how bad can it be if we're both in this? And that's why I learned recently, like, mutual abuse isn't actually a thing. It's usually one way, but the toxicity could look like it's the same. But people don't usually abuse each other equally. There's usually
The rebuttal.
Yeah, there's usually an abuser and a person fighting against the abuser.
Yeah,
But the person
reactor.
fighting, and it's not to say like victims can't be toxic. I think that's why we have to ask ourselves, like, is this the I just distinctly I remember being one of those couples who like fought with each other verbally, like in the middle of the night. And I was like, the neighbors can hear us. And I was like, oh, I'm that couple on TV I've seen in like sitcoms or something where I'm like, oh, no, we can't be this couple. And they're like, oh, I remember my partner at the time saying like, this is normal. This is how people are. I was like, my parents never did this. And I was like, wait, what am I doing? Like, it was like a wake up call for me to realize like, oh, I'm that person in the story who's yelling and our neighbors are thinking, oh, there's that couple again. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Like, I'm so mortified at myself. And I think like that mortification, I could see myself like instead of being so in it, I was like able to be like, oh, wait a second. And this allowed me, like, pulling myself out of my own head and viewing myself allowed me to really see. And that's what I want everyone to do is like pull yourself out of your own head and look at you. Who are you in the story? Like, you're this person.
You learn how to do that in therapy.
I did. Yeah, I did. It was
Out of the situation and look at yourself. Yeah. Mm.
So I was gonna say, I think so what's interesting about the conversation you're having right now, Brittany, and the show is that it's difficult in the show for Allison and for the other characters to name that relationship as abusive. And then I also remember you describing, I think, the relationship that you're talking about now as like toxic but not abusive, and now you're describing it for what it was. What was the change that made you, I guess, realize that?
I started identifying. Yeah, you're right. I never described that relationship as abusive until I don't even know when I first started to say it, to be honest. Maybe the last year or so. I don't even know. I think I could say it in private, because in private, my friends and I would call it abusive. But in public, as a YouTuber, I didn't want to own that terminology because it also felt like I wasn't just telling my own story. And that person has a family. And that person's family like could see that video. And that felt like really nasty. And then I felt like I got permission to say it out loud a bit. You know what I mean? But yeah, in private, it was definitely pretty clear that it was like abusive. But I'm a tough bitch, and it was hard for me to see myself in a position where I was like as abused. That felt really fucking shitty. And so I think it took me a long time to realize like girl, like no amount of books you read, no amount of strength you think you have, like the strength was to walk away. Like the strength was to block and never look back. And that was hard, by the way. It's not like I blocked and I never got contacted again, right? It was like 3 years of like consistent, like finding ways into my life, finding people to talk to me. And then finally it just stopped. And I was like, I was released from this relationship. And it was like the greatest thing the universe ever gave me. And that's why I say sometimes the greatest gift is a death. Like the greatest gift sometimes is the end, you know?
I will say I dealt with like a different situation for about a year afterwards, after getting out of the situation, having officially no contact, like whatever. There was still a weird guilt of like kind of how like maybe publicly you didn't want to say the words because like the person has there is still like this weird guilt of like surviving. I feel like you got out of that relationship, but now it's like I'm doing so much better. And then the part of you that still loved that person is like, I hope they're doing like, I hope they are doing better. I hope they did improve. But like, you deal with that for like a while after.
You do. You absolutely do.
A long time.
Yeah, you really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just don't want it to be like, oh, you got out of it and you're just better. No, there's
you
still a lot of work.
A lot of tears were shed way after. A lot of tears were even shed when you find out like they're not doing so great. You're like, damn it. Like and that, you know, in some ways it's comforting because you knew like, okay, you leaving was right. But also like that person has a family. That person has friends. That person has people who love them. And like you sit there and you just, it stays with you. Like it's these people have real lives. You know, it's really sad.
So that will wrap back to that's another reason why I don't think Allison would be able to just like walk out. I think Kevin needed to die in the show for her to have any semblance of like
I agree.
Officially done, because I don't think she would have been able to leave and just like if he stayed alive, he would be in like he'd see her a few months later, he'd have contact with her. She's not going to leave Worcester necessarily, right? She wants to stay in her home.
God forbid this man found TikTok. Can you imagine Kevin on TikTok? Bro. Right? His rants would be crazy.
How do we think Kevin's death affected Pete? And then I think Kevin's mom is dead, but like, how do we think, like, do we think that is finally what makes Pete take accountability? Is that his only child is now dead, no grandchildren, Pete's old as fuck, like he's not having any more kids.
Did we see anything of Pete after? I can't remember.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't know if he cares. He didn't seem like a father figure. He seemed like he was like a friend or just kind of like there for the ride or could use his son. Like he moved into their basement.
For the grave as well, to be honest. Yeah. After that.
So I don't think he like would care. He'd be like, oh, I mean, that's sad. I don't know if because he left and the way he left was just like, no, it felt like no contact. It felt like you left your son because you realized he's a piece of shit. So it's like, I don't know that he...
But he wouldn't have the tools to be able to deal with his care, so he would bury it down. Yeah.
He'd probably just drink himself and just drink.
Exactly.
I just imagine him going like, Kevin, like, like, you know, just like a big, like a man sigh and just like, you know, and every time they're like, do you want to talk about it, Pete? It's like, you know, it's just like this thing that like happened, I guess, or like he's at the funeral, but like there's nothing. Yeah, there's probably no real closure, I suppose.
Suitable ending for a mistake of a child.
Yeah, well, mistake of a parenting. I don't even know. There's no, like, it is what it is. Like, sometimes it's just how life happens, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so sad, too, because, like, all of this is, like, goes back to trauma. Like, the irony of, like, NPD as a diagnosis is, like, childhood trauma. Like, the irony of all of this is, like, this is why it's so important to be, like, to be the healthiest version of yourself to the best of your ability as you procreate or bring babies into the universe. And when you're lucky, like that baby influences you to be like a better version of yourself. So you know what I mean? Like the most beautiful way, like there's no perfect parent ever, but we can we can harm reduce to the best of our ability. And I don't know if anyone in this community even knows the idea of harm reduction, right? If their whole life is suffering, if everyone's miserable, how could they even imagine?
Kevin starts dating Molly 2 months after Allison supposedly passes away. That's a 10, 11-year relationship that they had. And so it kind of shows that, like, I don't think he doesn't love Allison, but he loves the fact of, like, what Allison can do. He loves the character, like, added to him, right? So, like, he gets Molly. Molly's all, I have a new hot girlfriend to take care of me. That's all he sees them as. sees
Yeah.
all these people as like replaceable and just like just tools in his belt.
Well, I think that's what was so devastating to the whole like Neil dynamic, or maybe all of them is like all of them are replaceable. All of you are replaceable. Not one single one of you is not replaceable. It's like, damn.
Even though there was no replacements because he didn't know he lost everyone.
Yeah.
He didn't realize he lost everyone. So I think
Yeah.
that like for Kevin to come to terms with like he thought they were replaceable, but like are they? Are
Yeah.
they? You need them. It seems like just as much, if not more, than they need you, since you can't be alone for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just starting. That was just starting to dawn on him at that very last scene where Molly comes in, where he's like, "Oh, there's nothing to do. I'm bored." And
Mhm.
he's just saying words. Yeah.
Like being a narcissist is got to be a weird, like, you think you're in control of your life, or you suppress the fact that you're not in control of your life so much, right? But like you're a victim of your own like actions, which is like
Yeah.
really weird to like think about for someone who's a narcissist, because their lives portray like, I'm having a great time, everything is working out for me, how am I a victim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't care. Like, it's at the expense of everybody else. And like, I think that's why it's amazing to see like therapists like Dr. Kirk Honda on YouTube who says he specializes in personality disorders and does see some work being done with the MPDs. I do think like a big part of it is like they get written off as children, they get written off as adults, but also, and I mean this, I have a podcast coming out, you have got to stop using friends as therapists. Like, medical professionals need to intervene. This is a medical professional situation. And I think sometimes we forget that, like in this small community, I could never imagine them going to therapy. So what do? They drink. They are ruckus. They make a mess. They talk to each other. Like, sometimes in life, you need somebody who's studied the brain, studied people, studied like who has the educational background to help you in some capacity, because like sometimes our friends and family, one, we cause it, or two, like we're contributing or enabling, or three, we're just out of our depth. Like, we're out of our depth and we want our loved ones to get better. And the difficult part is like, how do you get a Kevin into therapy? How do you get a Kevin who's not, and this is what typically happens, is they get into therapy and then they're like, therapy was great. I really loved it. By the way, you're gaslighting me. And it's like,
What they learn in therapy is part of their toolbox of
Yep.
manipulation.
Exactly. He would go to Allison and be like, actually, Allison, you're gaslighting me. Neil, tell her.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
He would try to win therapy. That would
Yeah.
be his
Yeah.
whole goal, is like, nope,
Yes.
I'm gonna win this session.
Yeah.
100. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it gives me a headache thinking about it. But that would have been a good part of the series. That would have been kind of funny. But yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they wanted to. I don't think they wanted to focus on the funnier of the sitcom. I think they wanted the
yeah.
sitcom as like a big, like a C story, not even a B story. It was just to show how he sees things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of an interesting commentary on like the sitcom tropes of the 90s and early 2000s. Like, if you think about it and you actually look at a lot of those shows, they were horribly abusive relationships where
Totally.
the men were completely incompetent and the woman was just the punchline of the joke.
Yeah.
It's like, holy fuck. And that was like humor that we grew up with. Like, that's what was funny.
Yeah, well, I watched a video essay about that. Like the internalized, like even the Jeffersons or any of those shows I grew up with, like, hey, he's yelling at her. Like, what are you yelling at her for? And it's like, why do we marry these men? Why do we tolerate this behavior? And like, why do we think this is okay?
Exactly. That's why the laugh track annoyed me so much. It was like, oh my God. But I think it was kind of
The
a little
point.
over the top.
Yeah.
You know, it was supposed to be a little over the top.
Definitely.
Even for, like,
Definitely.
comedy.
Definitely.
It was like grating on my nerves. I was like, ugh, I hate the laugh track. I hate it.
I think a lot of people, after watching this, like maybe look back at old sitcoms, like, oh shit, maybe these were abusive relationships, right? And so it's
Definitely.
like, yeah,
we
it's
handled them through humor.
but it's
Yeah.
but it's like it's symbolic of the era, right?
Yeah,
so
it
like,
is.
you have like with the 50s, like, I'm gonna punch you to the moon, Alice, and then we get the Jeffersons where it's like no physical, but like there's yelling, and then
Totally.
eventually we get to the point of like the dumb dad and like
Yeah.
the smart mom, and now the mom is the one who's kind of like
Yeah,
cynical and
yeah.
abusive
That's
to
the
the
biggest
parent.
thing women these days are having to put up with, is this idea of weaponized incompetence. And at the end of the
Mhm.
day, I think sitcoms like that, it's about in some ways, not to get into a feminist rant, but I do think it is about upholding the patriarchy, because if the standard is to not beat your wife,
Mhm.
then like, okay, like probably 99% of men can do that. But if the standard is be an equal participant in the home, like, actually fucking do shit and not sit around like a big man baby, then all of a sudden, oh no, he's the dumb sitcom dad. And women are kind of taught to expect that and put up with that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's like, yep, that's life.
That's how we are. That's how guys are. Look, have you not seen TV?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Now-
then what do the new era of sitcoms look like then?
That's a
the
great question.
2025s?
What are the sitcoms right now? Like, what am I missing out on?
Sitcoms?
Are the dramedies kind of like not the new sitcoms like Shame? I haven't
like
seen
Sh-
Shameless, but
like
I
Schitt's
found-
Creek.
Shameless
and
is
stuff like
old though.
that.
Schitt's Creek is so funny. But like
Yeah.
that stuff is that's like pure humor though, isn't it? Like Schitt's Creek kind of like I mean
Yeah.
there's some heavy stuff, but it's pretty funny. Shameless is a little older, and then I like even like You and stuff. Those are like crime. Those aren't sitcoms technically. And I missed out on Modern
Those are
Family. I missed out
Oh,
on
yeah.
like
Watch Modern
I gotta
Family,
watch it.
I'm telling you.
I gotta watch it.
Community, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I missed out
Pure
on some
comedy
things.
gold.
Yeah. Now I will say I know we're on a time limit today. So I want to, head towards wrapping it up. Was there anything else we haven't discussed that we did want to discuss? I want to bring it up now because I forget. Like I come into these things and I don't take notes, and that's really a mistake because I feel like we talked about so much.
Nope, I was just go ahead.
What year was it? Because I did find it really weird that nobody was on the internet. Like I was very deeply confused. No apps.
They had
No,
iPhones.
They had iPhones.
Yeah.
but
she
like
didn't have her own computer. But that's probably because a lot of people don't have their own computers, so she had to use the library computer. But they had, I think it was the 2020s.
okay,
just
but
like-
that's
Right.
that's another example of like a family computer. Like I remember when we got our family computer. I remember I was a kid though. I was like 11 or 12. Like I remember when we all I remember when I got my first phone. It was when I could pay for it. That was the rule. So I turned 18,
Yeah.
got a job, paid for my phone. Right? Like I paid for my first car. Like, you know what I mean? My parents did pay with the down payment, $2,000. Big deal. It was a big deal. That's a big deal. And then I paid the payments, like $280 a month or whatever it was. Like, but I got a job. I got a second job. I paid for my shit. Call it a day. But these people like to not have a computer at home. I'm like, oh, we're dealing with a level of poverty.
It's a
That's
low income neighborhood,
very
and then
different.
small town. Like if you go to most small towns, like if you go like up north Michigan, it's not like people have Instagram, but it's not like they live their lives on Instagram because
Yeah.
there's no like celebrity. There's no reason to like post so like often and doing so much.
everyone
like,
knows
that's kinda what-
everything anyway.
Yeah, they live in this like little town. It's not like there's much like with social media, it's always showing the positives and the fun. It's not like these people go out to dinners and
Sure.
so there's nothing really to post or talk about in terms of like social media. And then the
Yeah.
car thing, I don't think they would have encouraged social media because like he didn't even encourage her to like have her own car, right? He's like, oh, you're bad
Crazy.
at driving. I'll just do the driving. We have one car.
Yeah. What a
So
way
I
to
think
Which, by the way, is like I have like a person I'm pretty sure is NPD. That's exactly what they convinced their working wife to do. And they called me. They're like, oh, yeah, she's going to sell her car. And I was like, why? She has a business. He convinced her to not only sell her car and have one family car, but to keep her cell phone at home during work, which she was the breadwinner. And I was like, how did he convince you to do this? She's like, well, he's just better at answering my messages than I am, apparently. And I was like, it's like the things that like people can convince like people to do.
themselves of
That's say that again.
who will convince themselves of.
I'm telling you, like the way she rationalizes it to her friends and family, and now they've like alienated. It's a whole thing, but like that is like so shocking to me. Where I'm like, everybody needs to ground themselves because no one should be able to convince a working, educated college graduate that they don't need their phone at work. Like
I've heard.
you know what I mean?
I've heard people that are like the woman's the college. She's the only one working.
Yes, that's safe.
And-
Exactly.
Still, I don't know what control bum guys have over successful women. I don't know what
I'm telling you, they have
what this
charisma or
control
some
is.
shit. They got that brokey charisma.
Yeah, like
Something.
It's bad.
I think it's called
bad.
stigmatized.
Yup.
Crazy. But yeah, that manipulation, the way he went around her, the way he like spun stories and came up with like all these things, I just found him to be so incredibly exhausting. Everybody felt exhausting to me, but I did, and I think this was probably the purpose of the show. So Valerie Armstrong, I think I just learned her name, so I hope that's her name. But the writer of the show, she said that ending scene where she asked production, "Can I have the house burned down?" They're like, she's like, this is really important to me, and I really think this visual would help. And she said they really did such a good job that they barely use any CGI. Like they really just burned. They made this replica house. They burned it to the ground, and she was like, it felt so good, and I felt so relieved. Like as much as it would have been cool for Allison to have the house to live in, I think the house needed to burn.
Yeah,
you know,
everything has to go.
It has to go. All of it, all of that energy,
like cleansing. You know.
Yeah. I thought it was really good. I did. All right, guys. Thoughts, ideas, concepts, any last minute thoughts? Chat, any last minute questions, thoughts, anything to go over? What do we think?
I just highly recommend people watch.
It's good.
People watch
It's
this
good.
show.
I recommend it. I would say that I think if you hadn't recommended it, I wouldn't have found it, one. And then two, I think there's a part of me that wonders if I would have stopped watching because it was so frustrating, but I'm really glad I had a reason not to because I knew we were doing this panel because I think it was so much better by the time I got to the last. So if you're watching it and you feel like I can't finish this show, I promise you, I think it's worth it. But it is, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
16 episodes, too.
Yeah.
It's not like a long
Okay,
show.
you say not only 16 episodes, it felt like 100. I was like, oh my God. I was exhausted.
I will say, I had a couple of times where I was just like, it felt like we were like repeating loops too much, especially for such a short show. But the ending, I think, really paid off.
Well, I think that was like, I assume this was all on purpose to make you feel overwhelmed, to make you feel just like Allison, to make you feel like, I'm going to kill him. If you don't kill him, I'm going to kill him.
I think it was a good show for people to like see themselves play out like their worst like character, right? It's like, it is really like, oh, what character do you relate with? Why? What do you see in yourself that you see in them? And then now tackle that.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, I'm glad I watched too. I would not have finished it. It was like seriously anxiety inducing for me. But again, because it reminded me of some dark times in my life and I related to some of those characters and I did not like them and I did not want to relate to them. So yeah, I'm glad that I did finish it though. It was worth the trip.
Yeah, I think
and
so
honestly,
too.
A show that can evoke that emotion, that's a good show.
That is a good show. I think so too. My mom used to say that if an actor can make you hate them on screen, that's good acting right there.
Yep.
Like I really did. Like I was like, okay, you're pissing me off, bro. And like, I think that's a testament to the show. And also I love the story of the original writer. I thought it was really cool. I'll link the video on the Discord and stuff, guys. I just thought it was really cool to hear her perspective and like the way she wrote it and the fact that she, wasn't sure if they would get a season more than 2, but realized 2 was perfect. And she was ready to let go of this story and do something else because like it was even heavy for her,
Yeah.
There was some intense content in this. This was not a lighthearted show.
No.
This was very like it being on AMC also kind of gave it like the ability to like be so expansive versus being like on like a basic network.
Yeah, I agree. It was good.
Like to see Neil. I'm curious about Neil's story. I'd like to see him like heal. And get better. And like go like post PTSD,
We need like an hour-long spinoff or like a movie or something to give me like a wrap up,
Yeah.
All right.
Other than that, I'm very satisfied.
Yeah, very satisfied. Very satisfied. All right, did we do it, guys? Is that it?
I'm good with that.
Perfect. Okay, Maiden, Arena, Sociologic, Ollie, thank you so much for being here. I'll link everybody's socials, make it easy for everybody else, and then chat. I'll see you today for stream.
Yeah, wait, I have another recommendation.
Tell me.
Either Malcolm and Marie, the movie Malcolm and Marie. It's on Netflix. It's a 2-hour-long argument
with Zendaya, right?
Yeah, with Zendaya.
There you go. Sold.
Or Spiderhead with Bateman and whoever Thor is. I forget.
Chris Hemsworth.
That the clips I've seen from that show are so interesting. It is about they attach like a package to your lower back with which gives you like some type of drug or whatever. Just see a clip. Tell me if you guys are interested because that movie looks fucking interesting. Okay,
we go check it out. I'm gonna go check.
Recommendations since I think you recommended this one, so
yes,
I'll have to give it a try.
You're our movie guy. You're like our cinema guy.
Yes. I actually would love to run like a movie club type.
There you go. You're a cinema guy for sure. I love that. All right, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Good night, guys. I know you can. Well, here, I'll switch. Hold on. Okay. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I love a Saturday panel. I will see you guys again Tuesday. for stream, and then we're gonna finish Frenemies this week, and then I'll see you guys Monday for a pod and everything else. Oh, and Sunday book club in the Discord. We're starting. I am happy my mom died. Whatever. I'm glad my mom died. Whatever that Jeanette McCurdy book is called. I'm glad my mom died. Sunday book club Discord. Be there or be gay. Just kidding. We love that you're gay. We love it. Anyways. Okay. Bye.